Yes, we're back with Type 40 Live on Rumble, X, YouTube, and Facebook Extra Christmas Week edition of our live stream Doctor Who magazine show here. Usually talking about all things Doctor Who, but this time concluding our reviews of this Sunday night spin-off event series. Join in here. So it's all got very, very emotional. Let it all out, Kate. Go on, let it out, let it out. He's at it too. Look, it's water, extra water, absolutely everywhere. No, we mean everywhere, and all up the walls. Lots more to come. Let it all out and brace yourself for Type 40 Live. Ho, 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 everybody. Who's tapping already? Absolute chaos already. Okay, so here we are. It's the midst of Christmas party season, but that hasn't stopped any of us veterans back to the front in more ways than one, and all over the place, packed to the gills and foaming at the mouth too. So here we are. The panel are here, I'm happy to say, and raring to go. We've got Gary Akers, the retro doc here, Mr. David Milling, and his fabulous tree, a gift from the people of Norway. Luke Walters is over
my
there
Doctor
too.
Who t-shirt. There you go.
They're all festooned. Look at them. Look at them. We're all Captain festooned and raring to go, togged up and layered up. Charlotte, you two, right there in the bottom corner. Good to see you as well. You keeping warm? Sort of. It's nearest, damn it. Raring to go. So here we are again here with our early edition. We've sort of punched everything else out of the way to get to you as quick as possible with our reviews of the finale, of course. Yes, so where do we sit with it all? Well, I don't know what they think, and they don't know what I think. So we'll all find out together, won't we? There's people watching on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X, I'm happy to say. And you can drop your comments too. As ever, we'll be getting stuck in with you as always. So, yeah, let it fly, as they say. Let it fly. What's more to lose? Look at them, all raring to go. They don't know what's going on, and neither do I. Let's be honest. Okay, so it's the war between the land and the sea, the long title that's spawned 1,000 puns over the last few days. Even my son phoned me up earlier on, and he got a pun based on this title. It's been debuting on BBC One and the iPlayer as well on Sunday evenings. Has it made for cozy Sunday night viewing? I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure about anything at the moment, to tell you the truth. But between us, we may be able to make some sense of it, I think. I think a lot of us were a little bit nervous about this one. A fifth episode in the event series, following two double bills, of course, last week and the previous week. And this one coming, I think it started about 8:05, didn't it? So the running time was that little bit longer, wasn't it, Charlotte?
It was.
55 minutes or so, something like that. And written by Russell T. Davies alone. And I haven't been able to keep track, I have to be honest, Luke, of who's written what in which order. But it's had this sort of continuity and even tone throughout. So whoever's written which component part, I think they've done a pretty good job of keeping it consistent until now.
Yeah, I think so. I thought, yeah, the tone has been very. I don't know. I'll tell you what I think later.
So having a consistent tone, but having a consistent tone with an event series like this, telling one story is so important. As is a consistent look, and this has all been directed by Dylan Holmes Williams, or has it? Yeah, I've been hearing just today that perhaps it hasn't been. After all, I hear that there were reshoots of this going on right the way through to the summer, David. So I think that's nearly a year in production of just 5 episodes of Doctor Who-related content. Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe they had to be sure. They had to be sure they got it right, of course. So this is the 5th and final episode of the War Between the Land and the Sea, picking up from where we left off. So what had happened was, yes, they were parted, weren't they? So Barclay, who we're not really that sure about, Barclay was parted from his new love of sorts, Salt, the ambassador of the Aqua kind. So they were torn away from one another, weren't they? They'd gone to meet on Festival Bridge in London, and they were flanked by unit troops and the regular army. Everything was escalating to the point where we thought it was going to break out. The full war was about to break out. I think war could break out here when we get to our review. Make sure you've got your rants and raves handy. Everybody will be getting to those in due course. Of course we will. So this was called The End of the War. The End of the War by Russell T Davies. And in this final episode, Barclay stands alone as UNIT faces powerlessness, with the oceans rising and humanity's future hanging in the balance against the ancient Homo Aqua. So that's what I view as quite an economic synopsis. It sort of tells you what you already knew, Gary, and doesn't really prepare you for anything in the 50-odd minutes that's to come. Now, sometimes that's a good sign, because it can mean that they're very, very confident of what they're about to lay before us. In other cases, it's simply because there's not that much there to tell in actuality. I know that you've been, I say middling, haven't you, on the war between the land and the sea so far? So where are you now that it's all done? Because you were keeping your powder dry throughout the last 2 or 3 weeks, weren't you?
Well, I will say that, well, one thing I realized from this episode, and I started thinking about the other 4, is that it seems to me like that Russell T Davies really prefers to have his main characters crying in every episode. We got it with every Shooty episode, and I know we got it in at least like 3 of these. But, I do want to start out saying, I'll just give one of my initial thoughts now, which is that, the last scene, whether we're calling it last scene, post credits, whatever, that really resonated with me, because as you just said, my biggest complaint throughout the series has been how just slow and boring I thought it was. So when Kate starts yelling, "Pick it up," I thought, that's what I've been saying all along. Pick it up. Pick it up.
4 or 5 episodes.
And so I guess, Kate is now the Dirty Harry of the climate change movement. So that would be interesting. And I guess UNIT is now like Captain Planet and the Planeteers. So I think that it'll be interesting to see where it goes from this.
Well, there was a 50-odd minutes worth of story before we got to that, wasn't there?
The other thing, and I don't want to sound like the prediction that I made to you, Dan, in the PM, I said, wouldn't it be funny if, and part of me said that kind of semi-jokingly because I thought they're never going to do that. And that's how it ended, which was like lifting from Splash, and I thought, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I made that joke, didn't I, after we looked at episode 1, that it would be, it reminded me of the Daryl Hannah and Tom Hanks film from 5 years ago from 1984. And it did end up having a certain sort of symmetry with that after all. I mean, you mentioned there the crying. I mean, the truth of the matter is that I think that, and I don't consider Russell T Davies to be a poor writer, even at this stage in his career, David. But what I do note quite often is that when writing for adults, there's this assumption that everything has to be that bit more overwrought. And so the more bodily fluids of all kinds, whether it be blood, sweat, tears, or any other kind of fluid, come to think of it, they seem to be let fly with abandon after sort of 8 or particularly 9 in the evening, whether it's justified or not. There was an enormous weight of expectation on this finale to deliver on a fortnight's worth of our investment, I suppose. Could have been worse. It could have been a month. On a fortnight's worth. Gary's found it's all a bit of a trudge so far. I know your experience was slightly different. So what's your take on this finale? Are you buzzing? Do you feel satisfied? Or do you feel sort of spent and unsatisfied?
No. If I may address the crying thing, it was quite an intense. I imagine if I was in that sort of situation, I would feel a bit overwhelmed. If I was in Barclay's situation, I might feel a tad overwhelmed. If I was in Kate's situation, I might feel a tad overwhelmed and a little bit, close to breaking point. So I think the difference is though, David, I think in that what I find is that with adult drama, if a writer is a poor writer, then they can often hit that button right away rather than gradually burrowing deep into a character, breaking them down to that place. We sort of instantly get the waterworks turned on.
I didn't necessarily feel that about previous installments of this, I have to say. I thought it was, generally speaking, quite well measured. But
I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it because it was a sort of like build up to over the past few weeks as to where we are now. Suddenly you've got a guy isolated from everybody, including having to meet his family by appointment in a rounded off pub, where previously he was just, you know, the transport clerk who could come and go as he pleased and have a normal life. From my perspective, I enjoyed the episode. I thought it was the only Russell T Davies ending that he had written that didn't have a reset switch, didn't erase the past, didn't have a magic door. It had a clear plot. It led you from A to B to C. That plot may have not been involved, shall we say. It was quite a simple premise. I was intrigued and engaged all the way through it. And I have absolutely no problem with this finale whatsoever. I don't think it was perfect. I don't think any piece of drama is perfect apart from the ABC murders that Agatha Christie wrote. But I felt that it was good and I was happy to watch it. And I think it was a sensible, no, sensible's the wrong term. Sorry, everybody. I think the ending made sense. I could see how they got to it from the start. I wasn't surprised. I sort of thought it would happen this way. And I was happy with what I saw.
do you think it was predictable, David? You see,
Yeah, and there's not a problem with that. I have no problem because we, as a community and as a group, have really criticised Russell T Davies for some of his mad as hell endings. And where the hell has that come from? You know, and bloody hell,
so endings that come completely left field and make no tangible sense at all, whereas this followed at least a through line. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And yeah, it did. And it was pretty chilling as well with some of the action. I have to say, no reset button. No, it was quite horrible, actually, some of the stuff that happened. Which because Russell normally rewrites it, so it didn't really happen, or only a few people remember it, or you know, everything's okay, and a big switch was thrown and the baddies died
to take us back to a cozier place.
Yeah, to take us back to a cozier place. No, this is brutal. This was absolutely brutal. And
the character of Kate Lethbridge Stewart in particular has to be changed forever, I think, by this on screen and perhaps internally in the character Charlotte. You've been holding the actress Gemma Redgrave to task, haven't you, over the last, not just the last couple of weeks, but probably over the last 3 or 4 years. You know, it's been something we've taken the piss out of her blind, basically. But I think we've both been surprised to see how deep she's capable of going with this character when given better material. But I know you still felt it was somewhat wanting. I mean, yeah. How do you feel? How do you feel about this conclusion? Because I wouldn't describe it as a character piece, but it does jolt things, doesn't it, firmly in Kate Stewart's direction. And sort of, if you haven't sort of invested in that character and what she's been through, you could be even more at sea. So, what's your take on this finale? Do you feel that it delivered, or you feel somewhat differently?
I will say the one main positive was the acting once again, and I will include Gemma in that, because throughout this series, when you guys were seeing some really good performances, I was still seeing her being quite plain, autopilot acting. At least here, she got some really good acting scenes at the beginning and at that ending. But I'm sorry, I think the writing was really bad in this, and I think there were major writing issues. Like, throughout this series, there's been little moments taking me out of it, but I could get back on board. Like, that's the way I've described it so far. Here, there was big plot points which I think were not explained or set up. And I'll just sort of go
It's as if, Charlotte, it's as if we moved backwards from the main, stepped a few steps back from the main story, and we became observers. And it seemed to me that where this differed greatly from the four that had gone before was that, I mean, this could be my imagination, because obviously you watch something like this and it can be quite intense, but it seemed a lot of it was told or explained in voiceover. And there was a hell of a lot of scenes in slow motion as well.
The main ones I can think of, because I think this is going to be one of those episodes that once you dig into it, you will see so many more little things. Like, let's take Barclay suddenly having gills at the end. Or, like, it was set up throughout the episode, he was having the pains, he was getting looked at. And I still don't know why he gained them. I'm sorry, there was nothing in that script beyond maybe a couple of lines, and I'm being very kind by even saying that, I feel. That you go, oh, maybe it was that, or maybe it was this. But that's a major plot point. That's him physically changing. That's a massive, like, that's human sort of DNA changing. That's rewriting.
It is there, because clearly he was being subjected to a chemical procedure, which he didn't know about. But we weren't told anything. We could see what was going on, I suppose. But
here's the problem.
We were observers to everything, observers all the time.
It wasn't clear. I'm sorry, it was not clear if there was something in a throwaway bit of dialogue. The only thing I can think of is possibly when Salt saved him last episode. Yeah. That is, but then I'm grasping at straws, and I think, once again, Russell is just doing stuff because he wanted to get the happy ending with them at the end. That's all I could get from it. The other thing is, and this was a carrying on thing from the last episode, Salt made a massive deal about if she went back in the water, she couldn't swim with her people. Like, she would basically be ostracised, she'd be pushed out. Wasn't brought up once in this episode. And that was a major thing last one. That's why she was fighting to go back into the water.
They did lean on it once. They did lean on it once for dramatic purposes, whereby, because the last we saw her, she disappeared back into the waves. But there was a further meeting, wasn't there, with the ambassadors, and we didn't know when the tunnel filled with water and the door came down and the airlock opened, and we knew there were 3 Aquakind there, but that seemed beautifully sort of revealed who would be. We didn't know if she would be there or not, but we still don't know how she got there and how the character went from one place to another. It just happened, and that's that.
How she become the ambassador again? How she been given that position again? When she made it very clear, and even Tide, was he called? He literally said to them last episode, "We want her because she's saved a human. She's gone against our rules." So that wasn't, like I said.
I mean, I suppose playing devil's advocate, that race Aquakind has been diminished by 90%. So it could be that
as a character thing, I think that should have. I think as a to be honest, I think that's your in-plot explanation, but as a character piece, and that's what this has been doing quite well, usually, for me, it should have been more with her of the impact of what happened. And then the Kate gun scene. I'm sorry. You're telling me now that Kate is okay with threatening a civilian out in the open with a gun?
Yeah,
they go to great lengths. They go to great lengths to make it very, very clear to us that the woman is not only getting closer to the edge, but is actually over the edge. When we see her blackmailing her psychiatrist.
But
so, in all fairness, it does line up. It does line up with that, and I view that scene as a coda, really, rather than part of the main plot.
No, here's the problem. That one's got some logical through line, but I don't buy it. I don't buy that Kate
Not sure I do
would
either.
do it. That's the problem here, and that's a major character shift that I have to get on board with.
And I have no problem with that whatsoever.
The characters were built up. The characters, David. I think the characters were built really, really well in this across the first 4 episodes, and that was the reason why I stood up for it, because regardless of the fact of my the fact that I've been sort of estranged from Russell T Davies, I consider myself a former fan, Luke. I wouldn't say he was back to firing on all cylinders here, but I at least felt that somehow between them, both Russell T Davies and Pete McTighe had come up with something here that was fit for purpose, that did have this sort of general, consistently good quality, and was observing those key aspects, I believe, to any drama, whatever time of night it is, in that you build your characters well and you roll out a plot in a sort of even and measurable way. And that's where I felt, and don't get me wrong, I'm not completely down on this, but that's where I felt this final episode was quite jarring. In a lot of those things went out the window. But where are you with this, Luke?
So I thought the first 4 episodes were great. I loved them. On reflection, I think Pete McTeague's writing is probably better than Russell's, and he handled the characters well and the drama better. I was very disappointed with this episode. I was very disappointed. I thought it let it down quite a bit. I just, nothing happened, and everything it was more like the war between the boardrooms than the war between the land and the sea, and I just missed it for me, and I wanted it to succeed. I messaged you and I messaged David afterward going, well, I enjoyed the most. I thought the ending was a bit like, he has gills now. It's like, cool, man, fantastic. I don't know. It was just, I did take umbrage with Kate pulling a gun out on a civilian to pick up a piece of plastic. I was like, oh, okay, that's they give the in-universe explanation of why the Doctor's not there, because clearly every fan in the world is like, oh, well, why is David Tennant not showing up? And they wrote it in, which I thought, oh, okay, here we go. But yeah, Barclay's just, yep, cool, I've got a kid. No, I'm chasing some fishtail. I'm off. I was like, oh, okay, cool. You can see that happen. You can see that happening straight away.
That's what happens when you get 2 men who aren't fathers and who aren't as clever as they think they are, writing a scene about fathers and daughters, fathers and children.
I thought the acting was great. I thought, the plot could have been serviced better. The old crying thing with Barclay, I'm okay with. I know I've seen some people online being like, "Oh, it's just another man that cries." And hey, men cry too, man. That's absolutely fine with me. He's not a unit soldier. He's not the Doctor. He's not Kate Lethbridge Stewart. He's not drilled for this. He books taxis. It's going to be overwhelming for him like that. I'm perfectly fine with that. That's okay. But it was just, Russell doesn't do anything for me. For me, it's probably his strongest finale in a while. And I say this series is probably better than anything we've had since the 60th. But I thought the first 4 episodes were really, really good, and I thought we were setting up for something good. Then a big tense finale, and it just seemed like, just seemed something. It needed another episode for me. It needed 6. It needed 6 or 8. I think it just needed a little bit more. Last week. It just felt very, very rushed.
We mentioned this last week that our instincts, I think some of us were that it probably, how were they going to wrap it up in 5? Gary, I remember you said, is all this really going to end in 1 more episode? And the truth of the matter, I think it's screamingly obvious to me, not only that it needed a 6th episode, not necessarily to extend it past this point, but I felt that somewhere from the end of the last episode, of episode 4, on Festival Bridge, and the beginning of this one, that there was a whole an episode's worth of hot warfare, of actual action. Because I think just because a TV show has got the name The War Between in the title, it doesn't mean that something's going to be literally a war story and 5 episodes of warfare. But I believe it is such an evocative title that expecting it to kick off for at least 40 or 50 minutes and some heads to get cracked, some shit to get blown up, wasn't an unreasonable expectation. And my feeling was that we sat out all of that. And I think that had that thing is the possibility for a further episode jammed between 4 and 5 could have been further development for these characters as well. So it wouldn't have felt so drastically different and so jarring at points. It feels like there's connective tissue that's missing, and just simple. A simple. How can I put this? There's nothing wrong. There's nothing particularly base in a desire for people who've invested a few weeks of their viewing time in wanting to see it kick off. Monsters. The Sea Devils, for example, have done nothing. We could have seen the Sea Devils as a real threat The scariest scene I think we had was the pre-credit scene in episode 1, where the Sea Devil rattles out of that fishing net. After that, they've done nothing but turn up in various states of discombobulation, either completely dead or baffled. So, do you see what I'm saying? There's an extant episode of this somewhere.
If you get to the 5th episode of what you're writing, and you realize, Dan, as you just said, you're the writer, and you realize that there is a whole heck of a lot that either needs to be fleshed out or needs to be clarified or further explained, but all you have is 1 episode left. What you do is you go back to your episode 1, and then you start trimming and manipulating things in all the previous episodes to give yourself the room by the 5th episode where things don't feel rushed and don't feel unanswered, and you don't leave your audience going, wait a minute, how did that, where did that, why did he, whatever. You don't want that.
Gary, I didn't feel that this episode was necessarily rushed, but I did feel somewhat distanced from what was going on for the first 20 or 30 minutes. And when I've been watching a show which has been so carefully managed up to this point, I just felt something just didn't feel right.
The biggest question to Charlotte's wonderful summary of the unanswered questions, and Charlotte, I agree with every single point you made there. The biggest question I had, and when it was over, I had to sit and think, well, and kind of try to work it out for myself, which I shouldn't really have had to do. I'm going, wait a minute. How did the Aquakind actually die? And then I thought, okay, that scene where they're coming in, all the doctors and stuff are coming in, presumably into his hotel room. Presumably that was when he was being given the, what was it, severance. But then I thought, okay, so they put the virus in Barkley. And then when he goes into the water and puts his head under the water and yells salt, that spread the virus to the entire world all at once.
I didn't realize. See, I had no idea that was what was happening.
I thought it was when they kissed.
Me too.
Because they had that line about how they're all connected, like all the species.
Yeah.
So because she was infected. But here's the problem, that whole event of like a mass extinction, because that's what that was off screen.
Yeah.
We only saw the bodies start to float up. We didn't see any of that actually happening on screen. We got told when
and that
she
was all
came
beautifully
back.
done, and it was shocking.
Yes, but we
even
needed a bit more of it actually on screen before that. Yeah. That's my point. So much of this, I felt like Russell once again is being lazy and taking shortcuts with his writing. Like you said,
see, I don't think so. I don't think we needed to see it. I think the bodies itself were enough, and I've no issue with my leaving it me to join at the dots, because I think previously, you see, I'm sticking up for Russell T Davies on this one, because the guy's created himself. All right, not sticking up for him, but I'm trying to empathise with him here. The guy's between a rock and a hard place. He leads people by the hand to show them exactly what's going on, and they go, huh? So he goes, okay, right. What I'll do...
we don't need to be talked down to, Russell, so yeah. See what you mean.
What I'll do is, okay, I'll leave you to join the dots a bit then. And we go, huh? So he can't win.
No, I think
is this more to do with the fact that we've got somebody writing stuff for us who is a bit lost, perhaps not knowing which way to turn? And I just want to come back to that gun sequence on the beach. Professionally, having dealt with people and experienced some horrendous things when they've got unprocessed and unresolved trauma, quite often it is the most simplest thing that makes them go absolutely pop. So her doing that, unfortunately, I have seen people do the same. I have seen something that people may consider so inconsequential and then they snap, and then that's what happens. Boom. So that was a brilliant sort of flag to say, not ignore what your psychiatrist is saying.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, yeah, I guess that's
So
one of the.
do you think? Sorry, guys. Do you think that was intended as a kind of, from a writer's point of view, that was Russell T Davies kind of like a mic drop moment, but the audience will actually thinking to themselves exactly as Luke and Charlotte and Gary have, and me to some extent, in that, okay, I can accept that the character would go to that place, but perhaps there should have been a further sequence where she retires herself from active duty, or some sort of, because there's a logical conclusion, a logical consequence to that.
It doesn't always happen that way.
Well, she should have realized.
She should have realized it can be completely random. It's that one trigger, because if someone's they call it a trauma bucket. If someone's trauma bucket is full, then all it takes is another drop of water for them to have a massive blowout and react in one way. They can shut down, they can run away in panic, or they can explode in rage. And there are various other things. And what that was, it may be clumsily done in that earlier scene. As the reason why I say clumsy, that scene probably could have done with being in a different place in that episode, because it was right at the start of the episode. If that had been further on in the episode, then perhaps it would have been more logical for people of whom have not had that unfortunate numerous experiences of actually seeing that happen. So it could have been where it was in the whole jigsaw of the episode. That may be an issue. Do you think the idea, actually everybody come to think of it, but do you think the idea, David, that this was meant to, and not just in the sense of being an eco thriller and environmental issues, do you think that as a drama this was meant to challenge us and the kind of people who'd usually watch fantasy programming? Probably.
Well, Dan, okay, challenge us to do or think what?
And that's the problem. I don't know.
Well, wait a minute, Dan.
To be presented with characters and scenarios, possibilities and decisions that people would come to make, the weight of responsibility, and that idea that people don't always make the right decision, or that good people can, if not go rogue as such, can become monsters. Of sorts to accomplish.
Well, but see, here's a problem by putting that as the very last scene and then cutting it. So presumably, that's the last we're going to see of, Kate for a very long while, potentially, if ever. And because there's no ramifications of what she does there on the beach, are we to, now if we're right-thinking people, we should say, okay, yeah, you don't pull a loaded gun on a civilian, for littering, whatever you think of littering. You don't pull a loaded gun on them. I mean, that's just not done. But the show doesn't, but that's what we're bringing to it. That's not the position that we see the show taking. We're actually adding our own little, narrative to that. But what the show does is it doesn't say, well, maybe she was justified in doing that. Maybe that is the normal, should be maybe Russell's saying maybe that should be the response to the climate crisis and all of that. We don't know.
By showing her at loggerheads, Gary, repeatedly it's always the people who she comes to blows with. You notice they're all straight white men above a certain age. But this particular scene with the Prime Minister was I thought really quite powerful and well written, and both of the actors in question were terrific in it. It was, for me, this was when the episode started to jolt back to life again. And I started to believe in the things that I was seeing again. Two people sat close to one another in a closed room, each putting their cards on the table. And it sort of, and in fits and starts afterwards, it did sort of regain some of what I'd liked about the first four, but not quite enough. So I think but again, in my estimation, Kate Lethbridge-Stewart wasn't the main character of this until week 5. I never saw this as an ensemble show, Charlotte. It seemed to me it was being led by Russell Tovey and Gugu Mbatha-Raw, and we hardly saw her, and he barely seemed to speak.
Here's my thing with the Kate thing. I understand if it's meant to be trauma, and I understand if it's meant to be grief, because they show her seeing Loverboy at the beginning, like the ghost of him. But I said this last week, and it's really now a problem with this whole trying to change Kate's character, that this is only going to work if you have taken your time and built up that relationship in the previous series. If this is her tipping point, I need to feel the weight of it being a tipping point, but I can't, because the love that she's clearly still grieving and is meant to factor into what David was talking about has had hardly any lines, hardly any presence, and I don't care about him. If it was a romance that we'd seen slowly blossom throughout Shooty's run, or even earlier, ideally in the specials, and then throughout those 2 series with Shooty, you really bought them as a couple, then I could
Charlotte,
go, okay.
I'd love to hear what somebody who was watching this thinks, who not just hadn't seen the Shooty Gato era, but wouldn't necessarily be a viewer of Doctor Who over the last 10 years. Because what you're saying about Kate Stewart is absolutely right. But I do wonder, Luke, so if somebody found this, because this was a deliberate attempt to expand the viewership, or to reach people who wouldn't necessarily watch Doctor Who in a similar way to Torchwood. And so if people hadn't seen Kate Stewart before, and all of those things that Charlotte has just circled there, are all perfectly reasonable. So I wonder if somebody had never seen the character before and saw her go through this and the death, we looked at Colonel Sexy Pants as a bit of a walking cartoon because we'd seen him previously. But if somebody who was just coming across both characters from the ground up with this, they'd probably just think, oh, she's the boss. That's somebody she's shagging on the sly. Are we being harsher on this than the general audience would be?
It's a tricky one. I think, if it was developed more in the Shooty run, I think that's the problem with having 8-episode series, is your auxiliary characters are not going to have the full development. You know, they hold hands in one episode and you're like, oh, all right then, that's a bit weird. And then we kind of get something in the next series. But it just felt like this one could have been used to like really develop Unit as well. But Unit are kind of the side characters. Like when I first heard this was coming out, I assumed it would be Kate Lethbridge Stewart and them at the forefront, not Russell Tovey. And it kind of felt like not earned, and like, oh, I want to see more of Unit. And what happened to the Unit set as well? That's the most expensive wasted set gone. I wanted the Blinks. I wanted everything. But we didn't get it. But talking about the general public, so my stepfather actually, I was speaking to him last night, and turned out he actually watched episode. He watched the first couple of episodes, and he was like, "Oh, that's really good. Really enjoyed it." And I kind of told him then it was actually a spin-off of Doctor Who, and he was like, "Oh, that's shit." And he had no idea it was connected to Doctor Who, but he really enjoyed this. And he's so I took that as a bit of a litmus test. So, but yeah, I don't know. It kind of, especially Captain Sexy Pants or Colonel Sexy Pants' death, just felt a little bit unearned. Like if it was at the end of episode 4, maybe you could kind of develop it more.
You see what I'm saying? If you'd never seen those characters before, because he was a standing joke, the joke had carried over from the Gatwa era. Whereas if you'd never seen those characters before, you'd just probably take it as read, would you?
Yeah, I think Unit need to be pushed more to the forefront. And don't get me wrong, I did enjoy the episode. I do think it is probably one of Russell's better finales, but I was a little bit let down because all the other episodes I thought had so much promise. And this one just I enjoyed it, but at the end of it, I was just like, this could have done with a little bit more. Could have done with another episode, or even another half an hour. I enjoyed it. I was a little bit disappointed with it, but I think, maybe having Russell Tovey in as the lead was a bit of a mistake. You've got Unit there, push them to the forefront.
I found it difficult, Luke, to keep track of who was working for who and what they wanted. So I kept reaching when I hadn't got Barclay and Salt to invest in anymore. And there was all these sort of voiceovers and slow motion and all that kind of thing. I started to reach for the things that I thought I knew. And I became very, very conscious of the fact after a short period of time that I didn't really know a great deal about what any of the characters wanted anymore, who was working for who, what was being done to people and why. And I wouldn't say it made me feel stupid, but I did. Yeah, the word jarring is how I kept feeling. And it was only, I think, 25 for the first time ever. I looked at the time about halfway through, and it was only at about the 25-minute mark, 25 to 30-minute mark, it started to feel and to gel again and feel like the same show I'd been watching and enjoying before. And so I do feel that it did regain some of that. I didn't hate this at all, but I did feel somewhat washed out by it and dissatisfied.
And also, I've got a question. Oh, sorry.
Go on, Sean. Go.
I was going to say, so another thing that pops into my head. So now they can control water. That they can literally kill people with water. How come they weren't doing that before?
The idea was it was by choice, that this was that they from a moral perspective, that they wanted to give that they were the ones who were willing to negotiate and to offer us a solution, a window of time, and that they'd always had the ability to do this, the science to do this, because they haven't got special powers and things like that. The idea is that this is their own sort of arcane science that we don't understand, and that they've always been capable of doing this, but they wouldn't, because they're positioned as being better than us. They view themselves as being better than us, and that's the position that negotiations start from. And I think that assumption that they have.
I think I wouldn't be feeling like that if the actual solution wasn't so quick in this episode.
Yeah.
It wasn't so
I agree.
Right, okay, we're going to kill them all off, and that's how we're going to solve it.
But that's why I think this was made more for me, because I love those political sort of intrigue dramas. I love them. I eat them up. And that was a very sort of politically sort of thing to do, with all the murkiness that goes on and all the backroom deals, and that was right up my alley, and that would fit with right, okay, let's kill them all, and oh, by the way, as long as this doesn't come back to me because I'm the Prime Minister and I'm a good chap, sort of thing. So
if it hadn't been for that actor playing the Prime Minister, and I'm ashamed to say I haven't made a note of the actor's name, or I've forgotten it, because I think that he really helped sell it in the absence of Patrick, but can never pronounce his name, Patrick Balaldi from The Office, that guy who played Neil in The Office, and the bloke who's meant to be American, who I don't think he even had a line in this. We see him scowling at various monitors, and that's that. Yeah. I mean, David, could you follow? Because I'll be honest, I couldn't follow some of this. There were key. I agree with Charlotte in many respects. I think there were things missing, and I couldn't really follow it at points. I know there are things that I missed. You had no problem following it at all.
No, and I don't wish anybody to take offence when I say this, but I had absolutely no problems at all following it. But then, as I say, I do like this sort of political intrigue, make up your, join the dots sort of stuff. So that's why I don't have any problems with it. I think there was a bit of an identity crisis going on with the genre in the background as to, is this a political thriller? Is this a courtroom battle, as in all the boardrooms? Is this science fiction? Is this a fairy tale, aka fantasy? Is this is this sort of like a Scandi noir thing with all the voiceovers going on? But I was just taken by the political part of it. So that for me, it was I was sort of, yeah, this is ticking all my boxes. Yeah, go on, more boardroom scenes, please, and more sort of backroom discussions. Yeah. So
no, I enjoyed those aspects of it. I enjoyed those aspects of it. I just thought the episode was just a bit flat.
Yeah.
The thing is, I preferred Pete McTighe writing, but I have to say that I was praying for two things not to happen: a reset and Barclay being the master. Okay, so
Oh,
my point of starting was very, very low. Okay, so as long as I didn't get that, and I got a definitive ending, even though I could see where it was going to go, and it was very, very basic, because you knew it was going to be a love story in the end. Okay, you knew it was going to be a love story. So that was telegraphed at the end of episode 4 with the tartar sauce sort of element
I
on
thought
the bridge.
I thought that component to this mini-series, this event series, has been well done. I never felt at any point that it was saccharine or gratuitous.
No.
I thought it was quite nicely offered. Again, with characters that had been quite well built. The blessing was in casting these two actors, particularly Russell Tovey, who I think I may owe him somewhat of an apology, because I've never liked this actor. I've taken the piss constantly, but he was brilliant in this, and I'm thinking maybe I should go back and watch Being Human and all these other programs which people have loved him in, and maybe I should look again. I think if only because Luke Walters is in Being Human. So that's not worth the price of admission, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I'm in a couple of episodes, so please don't judge. But no, I was the same. I'm not a fan of Russell Tovey, but I thought he was great. I thought the casting was really good in this, and I thought the acting was superb, to be fair. So yeah, kudos to everyone for that. I thought whoever was it, did Andy Pryor cast this or no?
I never. You know what? I noticed the end credits to this Gary. The end credits, the fonts. Now I've got quite a big TV now, but the font was that small. I could. I still.
You needed a wall-sized TV to make out those credits. When this was over, I stopped and I asked myself, okay, what's my takeaway from the story? And I thought, well, okay, I guess it's that humanity writ large sucks and is genocidal to boot. I thought, okay, I guess that's my takeaway. Maybe also, don't carry a loaded gun when you're on double the normal dose of prescription medication.
Very
but I thought, okay, and I just kind of,
in all reality, Gary, she would have had a gun taken off her, and that's what they should have. That's what they didn't.
Well, see, she was done. Kate was done, and hopefully we can say, well, she'll realize this at some point. When she blackmailed that psychiatrist, she was done.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully she'll get a little bit of self-awareness and realize, no, I got to go. After, if I'm reached the point where I'm capable of doing that, I'm done. And I don't know. I mean, if this is, like I said, again, if this is the last we see of Kate, I guess the question is, are really, really happy of that's the conclusion of her character, that everything we've seen over the last, what is it, Charlotte, 10 years now since her first appearance,
At least,
has led to this. And that's basically her period, end of sentence, is her having the meltdown, pulling the gun on the civilian, and it's like, okay, adios, Kate, that's it. I don't know is that doing justice to the character? I don't,
See, I think if it would have been a new character that you would have given that scene to on the beach, I would have been a lot more kinder to it. Because at least with a new character, they could have bedded in, they could have shown more of this is where they're willing to go. But for 10 years, like you said, we have seen Kate be pretty moralistic, I'd argue, pretty able to handle these high situations, these tense situations, world-ending situations. I mean, she literally, with Capaldi, with the Zygon episode two-parter, was literally about to press a button and use a bomb. Like, we've seen her at these sort of just about to maybe cross the line, and she hasn't. So because she hasn't, I feel like it's a disservice now to have her cross it in the way they did it. I think that's what I keep going back to. I feel like Russell lately has got this real nasty streak in his writing. He did it with the Doctor last series with shooting multiple times.
The torture
He's now-
scene in the
Yeah.
Actually, that was written by what's the name, wasn't it? That bloody
Well,
awful Juno Dawson person.
before
But
that-
Russell T Davies would have definitely have okayed that and probably
Well,
encouraged that.
You're right, he didn't write the torture scene, but he did have him laughing at the death of the
Robot
young
Revolution.
guy, Polish. So that's what I mean. He's got a nasty streak in him now. And this just felt like, once again, the only way Russell is seemingly able to develop characters nowadays, or legacy characters, is to turn them nasty, is to turn them cruel.
I do like
And
the
I-
nasty side
Good
to
point,
Russell's writing.
good
I think
point.
it was present in his original stint on the main show to a lesser degree, and I'd begun to feel that he'd lost his bollocks basically. But
Yeah.
here, I think he's trying to. The simple fact of the matter is, I think he's just past his prime, and I think he tries to reconnect with that multiple times in this. The sequence, for example, where all the dogs get called out to sea by the sea devils. You know, the idea we're going to eat your dogs because you've been eating our fish. It's a fun, revolting comparison to make, and I think that was Russell's attempt to make this show, to have it line up to something like Black Mirror. And I've said that. I know I've said that before. I'm convinced that he watches Black Mirror probably pretty closely, and I think you could say that Black Mirror is probably past its best now. But Charlie Brooker and the various people who were involved in making that show, obviously that they've explored that territory very, very well and expanded on things that writers that have come before in genre programming could only really tease at. I don't think it's Russell's natural inclination to go there, and that's why some of even that stuff feels like hokum.
I actually, though, honestly, just very quickly, Charlotte, I really do agree with what Charlotte said. It seems like, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not going to sit here and try to psychoanalyze RTD, but I do feel that, as Charlotte pinpointed, there's a lot of anger that's, for whatever reason, that's coming through the writing into the finished product of what we see. And Charlotte named just a few instances of it, and to me, that was palpable. And that is palpable. I mean, the scene, and I'll just say, Dan, that after that first scene with the dogs, my first thought is, oh, well, okay, they've lost Bull's Trek, because, you know, our friend of the show, Bull's Trek, his one criteria for judging any show is do not hurt animals.
It's,
Yeah,
I like the line from about the Vietnamese ambassador saying what's wrong with
Yeah.
eating dogs. I thought that was very well done. But going back to what you were saying, Charlotte, he was, I know in a couple of shows ago, a couple of Thursdays ago, we identified how kind of nasty the writing was towards Mickey in his first season, and the Kate thing with her flipping. I think the damage was done because we didn't see her. But I didn't watch the Jodie. Really, we didn't see her a lot in the Jodie era, because mainly I didn't anyway, because I hardly watched any of the Jodie era because I couldn't deal with it.
She was
But,
hardly in it, David, I can tell you.
But there was there was this big gap because Stephen Moffat actually did quite a lot of good work with her in the Day of the Doctor, and where she's about to blow up the whole of London, and you know, she was doing quite well, and this character was sort of starting to come through. Then we had this massive gap, and then suddenly she's back on the screens. And I think you're right, Charlotte, because she's been a sort of piecemeal character that hasn't really developed in the meantime. So we haven't actually seen that journey for her, which makes it more incredible that she suddenly is where she is. And it's almost like not doing the groundwork first and then ending up where we are.
I think the problem is when you take it to such an extreme, and that's what it is to me now with Kate, you need to justify it. You need to show the leader, like you said, the groundwork. So let's say, And this is like what Dan was talking about. This was meant to be its own show. This was meant to be its own entity and not need to have so many connections back to the main show. But what they've done with Kate is now required to have a lot of back work and back sort of scenes that needed to be in the shooty run or in the specials to then get to here. So it's almost like,
I don't know. I think we'd need to find a member of the public who had not seen Doctor Who to really nail that. I keep coming back.
I think you're right.
I think we feel that because we've seen the non-existent, I won't even say patchy, non-existent character development over the last 10 to 12 years of her. So I feel that we are, I don't use the word prejudiced, but I feel we are coloured by years of walking a particular path.
Yeah, and
on that note, I've got to shoot. Sorry, I'm going to shoot because I got things going on. But enjoyed the episode. Wished there was more. But there you go. Well done, everyone. Nice to see everyone. Hope everyone has a happy Christmas or a happy holidays. Merry Christmas, Gary.
Yes,
it is happy holidays over there, isn't it?
What?
Happy holidays in the States, isn't it? It's
oh,
not
well,
Merry
no.
Christmas.
I mean, I say Merry Christmas.
There you go.
I
Merry
always say
Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, I hope
to you.
everyone has a good Christmas
Merry
and a
Christmas.
good New
Same
Year.
to you.
And I
We're
will
glad
see
you
you
can
soon.
find room for us amidst party season. Hope it's a good one, mate.
No worries. You all take care.
Merry Christmas, Luke.
Thank you.
Take
Bye
care.
bye. No
Enjoy.
start.
Thank you for the 3 points.
Nadolig
on
Clewens. Oh, you. Ooh.
Merry Christmas, Luke. Yeah, things started to gel, as I say, a little for me in the second half of this, once we reconnected with the characters which had promoted such interest in me initially across the first couple of episodes and throughout. I've really enjoyed this series, but I did find it a little too late. It wasn't enough to bring me back around to this, and so I do feel that this is, if not, I mean, it's certainly not some sort of betrayal, and it certainly doesn't feel like like any kind of handbrake turn, or kind of like David was saying, like it's an ending that feels like the ending to something else. Everywhere it went was perfectly viable. It was in the way that it was presented, and that the things that are missing. That's why I feel so dissatisfied and so underfed, I think, by the fifth episode. Maybe I should have got that down as given by the bland episode title. I mean, I wouldn't describe this as bland. I just think that it needed to bare its teeth far more. And the moments where it seemed really pleased with itself, I just didn't feel it. There's nothing wrong with that coda scene in and of itself. And it does offer a kind of symmetry with the very first episode. I think the very first scene of the very first episode was a sort of a plastic bottle floating in the water. So I can see what they were trying to do. And that's probably why we didn't get an additional scene with Kate saying, look, I'm not fit for duty. Here's my gun, here's my badge. I'm going back home to watch Countdown. If we didn't get anything like that.
But see, that's the thing. I mean, we could sit here, right-thinking people saying, of course, in a circumstance, you don't pull a gun on that. Of course, you wouldn't, commit genocide against like this race. But to me, that was the problem. I think when you're dealing with things like that, especially when in the case where you have a long-running character and that's where you leave her, I think that the show needed to take a position that it's wrong. Because, I mean, for all we know, the show's position is that no, humanity was entirely justified in committing genocide against this race. Negotiation was never going to work. Boom. So this is what humanity needs to do if they're presented with a threat to its existence. And the same thing with Kate. It's like, because they do that smash cut and there's no, like, what are we to conclude? That maybe it is justified?
I've been running.
We don't know.
It's funny you should say that, Gary, because that's what I've been running in my head since I watched this last night. Because the parent series would do that because it's family programming and it's the responsible thing to do. But does adult drama need to do that? I'm not convinced that it.
Even if it's adult drama,
it needs.
Even if it's adult drama, it still needs to have a point of view. It still needs to take a position and have a point of view.
To be fair, I do think after they did the genocide, there was a couple of comments. I think Kate sort of said something to the effect of being ashamed. I think a couple of other characters did sort of hint that we were the ones that did the most horrible act out of the two groups. I think there was some of that. There was nothing for Kate's action. I completely agree with you there. But I think
Charlotte,
that was...
the Aquakind weren't justified. What the things they were threatening us with, like you were describing them a few minutes ago, they weren't justified in asking that of the human race, expecting that of us, and threatening us with annihilation. There was an ugliness there as well. I don't think they weren't portrayed as angelic.
No,
I think that both races were, and there had to be a winner. There had to be somebody had to be the victor. And realistically, it was always going to be the humans, and this was always going to only really end one way. It was how we got there, and kind of like Gary says, what they would choose to say about it and us, as a not just at the conclusion, but throughout it, the message that it would be sending. Speaking of messages, I hear that the identity politics people will be losing it about this. Not only has Kate been outed as being straight after all, because a certain factor, the far lefties were very invested in the idea that Kate, for some reason, was a lesbian. So when it was revealed that she was straight after all, they moved their attentions to Ruth Madeley's character, Shirley, and they'd assumed that she was married to a woman. It looks like she's married to a guy. So there'll be a mourning. Straight people on TV. Gary, whatever next?
Well, yeah, hopefully the BBC will learn its lesson and never do something like that again then.
Ruth Madeley was good in this, I thought, particularly good in this episode, because I think that she had more pushed onto her, I suppose.
You want me back?
Yeah, and I've never been a, what you'd call a fan of hers. She's never really made me feel much one way or the other, but I did think she was quite good in this.
Well, she'll be running unit the day after the final scene. She'll be in charge of unit.
Well, I think she was positioned as almost trying to be the moral compass for Kate throughout this series, or trying to sort of be the voice to say, no, you're pushing yourself. You're pushing yourself. Stop. And actually, I think that's a better way to write her than they have been previously. I think before she was written very combative, almost like with a chip on her shoulder, like for no reason. And now it's like they have given her more of a reasonable way to sort of be bullshit. It's what she is as character. But
before she just seemed like a really like Haley from HR. She just seemed like a really aggressive kind of Dodsworth type.
At least now that was sort of being directed into a better reason. I think that's why I think she's worked better in this series.
Yeah, they softened her. And it needed to be done, because she was very much and all this very sort of snidey, very sour-faced, very for goodness sake, eye-rolly, and almost like an old battle axe in Coronation Street, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah,
very
winning
much
the pub.
sort of in the pub, just go a bit Mordish, or a bit Ina Sharples for the older viewers, but they needed to soften her, and actually I'm pleased they did, because they made somebody really unlikable from the main show to be kind of okay and quite likable in this show, and I think they needed
David,
to do that.
I think the difference was I don't think I liked her necessarily, but I understood why she was there, which is a big which is an upside.
Well, I really like the character. Unfortunately, I don't think they bothered giving him a name, but I actually really like the character who came up with the idea for the embedding the Accord thing in the messaging. It was a nice way he played that. I thought it was a good performance, kind of an interesting character. Afterwards, I realized, wow, they didn't even bother giving that character, a name. But I think that I liked him over the course of the series.
Yeah, and he was the one that cracked the inappropriate gags and said the inappropriate stuff.
We'll just call him the guy.
The guy.
Since we don't know his name.
Beardy.
Did the characters of Salt and Barclay need to end up effectively together? I mean, I suppose they're going to go off and live in that trench, aren't they? And surely he hasn't taken a change of underpants with him, so pretty soon he's going to need to pop out to Primark, isn't he? He's going to need to get back on dry land and go and hopefully get something in the Boxing Day sale. I don't know.
So is he a fish now, or is he like a hybrid? A hybrid.
He'd got that little pearl. He'd got that little pearl at the base of his neck, hadn't he? Did I see that, Charlotte, or was it?
I didn't see
just
a
a bead of
Really?
sweat?
Oh, I didn't see that.
I think he had it.
I didn't see that. I didn't see that either. Maybe he'll go down to SpongeBob SquarePants place and get some.
They'll run into Tom Hanks and Daryl Hannah down there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can double date, can't they? Maybe
That's exactly. You know what? I'd watch 5 episodes of that.
I did find it really odd that Salt just disappeared for like half of this episode.
Yeah.
I didn't get that. Like I said, they set her up at the end of the last episode that she was running away, that she'd crossed the line with her people, she'd been banished, and then nothing for like half the episode, and then she suddenly appears to basically, I felt like, and this is no fault of the actress once again, when she gave the line she had, she was brilliant, but I felt like she was reduced to just sort of, I need to say plot lines. I need to explain stuff. Yeah, that's what I feel like. And that's such a shame, because I felt like this character actually had a lot more potential than what she ended up being in this episode.
I wouldn't describe this series as a love story at all. But obviously this was a component part of it, those characters feeling drawn to one another. And I thought it was reasonably well done. The makeup and the look of Salt with the fins. You could say it's similar to how Russell T Davies approached Doctor Who when he first came back to it, is to own it. You know, if you're going to have a fish person, give them gills, give them fins, and sort of lean into the silliness. And if you write it well and you cast the right people, then they will be sold. We had the Doctor in a similar relationship with Jabe, the tree woman, in The End of the World, albeit for about 20 minutes. That's kind of how this made me feel. A similar kind of thing. As long as you don't sort of fixate on any of the biological aspects to it. I mean, I suppose anything's possible now that Barclay's sprouted gills and perhaps a pearl. I don't know. Maybe that was just my eyes playing tricks on me. I don't know. So who knows where it's going to go? I mean, in all sincerity, do you wonder what could happen to the characters in the future? Do you think there could be appetite for anybody to hear more of this, to see more of it, to want to know where it goes afterwards? Or is it sort of kind of like Splash, where nobody asked for Splash 2, they made it anyway?
Yep.
And do you think the fact that Tom Hanks and Daryl Hannah didn't go back, do you think that they should take the lead from that and never sequel this ever?
Yeah. I honestly
don't think it needs a sequel.
Yeah, I don't want to sound overly harsh and dismissive, but I didn't care honestly about either. I'm not talking about the acting. I'm talking about my investment in the characters as characters. I never really cared about these two enough to really kind of wonder what's going to happen to them in the future.
The sad part is, Gary, I didn't by the end. I felt completely distanced from both of them, whereby across the first 4 episodes, what had piqued my interest, what had compelled me to watch the next one, was that I felt the characters were so well built, so well acted, that I was really invested in them. And yet, throughout the first 20 to 30 minutes of this episode, we were stepping further and further and further back. We were disconnected from them. To me, this series, the reason why it worked really was that despite it being sort of global stakes and things like that, they sold us on an intimacy between not just Salt and Barclay, but the kind of stuff that David was talking about, all the hushed rooms and intimate conversations. And yet in this, we're at a great distance, we're being narrated, we've got the slow motion, I don't know. And that's that's what I keep coming back to, the jarring feeling that this was an episode that just didn't sit very well next to the others at all. And so felt like a conclusion that was, the archetypal damp squib, in that most of what needed to be there is in there. it's just it's also undercooked that it can't satisfy for me personally.
Well, I agree with Charlotte's assessment. Charlotte, please correct me if you think I'm misquoting what you said, but the fact that it seems to me like that the dramatic climax of the story really came at the end of the 4th episode on the bridge. The 5th episode, this episode was just like box ticking to wrap it up. Gotta end the war, click. Gotta kill off Hakukai, click. Gotta get them together and send them off, click. You know, it's basically, it's like, let's just, okay, we got to answer what we've got to answer. I mean, there was no continued like upscale, like dramatic denouement. That was all the previous episode. So this was basically played in a lot like almost like an epilogue, really, to a lot of the main action.
The biggest problem I've got with this,
sorry.
the biggest problem I've got with this, the thing that I find impossible to get on board with, to square, given how we got to know Barclay before, is no matter how he feels about Salt, I don't believe that he would leave his daughter.
Yeah.
No, me neither.
Well, he called her. He called her
to parent her alone, and the idea that he could sort something out that he would just call her like that, the way you would if you just got through to judges' houses on the X Factor. I found this really hollow and unfeasible, shall we say. I know this is a fantasy show, but I feel that when you're telling stories that are this sort of high fantasy in a kind of gritty and grounded way, as this is endeavored to do, you've really got to hold that line and hold it tight. And Barclay is not portrayed as an absent parent. He's not portrayed as an irresponsible person. He's heavily invested in his daughter. He's got a good relationship with his mother, his daughter's mother. And in fact, I'd go so far as you can still see that there's love in that relationship between him and his ex-wife. And yet he abandons.
You've picked up the only part of the episode I did have issue with, Dan. Well done, congratulations on highlighting this, because it is nonsensical from a parent's point of view. Sadly, there are parents that will walk away from their children, that will leave them and be estranged from them. That sadly does happen. But when we see Barclay in fear that he, the sea levels are rising, that they're being taken to a place on high ground, he breaks down legitimately and says, well, I'm still going to be able to come and see you, aren't I? I'm still going to be able to come and visit. There is obviously a man who deeply loves his daughter and still has a reasonable relationship, well, I'd say more than reasonable relationship, with his ex-spouse. And to then do it by a phone call at the end, I'm sorry, I have real problems with that. And I appreciate that Russell T Davies does have an extended family, and he has nephews and nieces and maybe cousins and all sorts. However, from a parent's point of view, and I'm not going to say you can't empathize with how parents act, or if you're not a parent, but I wouldn't be that stupid to say that. But from a parent's point of view, I do not believe, even for a greatest love of their life, it doesn't matter if they're a fish person, it doesn't matter if they are a really successful businesswoman or a businessman or whatever, however you want to live your life, that's fine. The one thing you do is you protect the relationship that you have with your children, and at all costs. And to portray, I did feel cheated by in respect to this, with respect to the character of Barclay, because it goes against everything else we've been shown on screen about his relationship with his daughter. It started with him dropping his daughter, or having to wake up his daughter off and drop her at her mother's. So it was very centered on his way of life and the love for his family setup, and to do it with a scene like that, I'm sorry, Russell, you got that very, very, very wrong. Very wrong indeed.
Steven Spielberg, a couple of decades after he did Close Encounters, I was reading an interview with him, and he said that is the one thing that he would change about his earlier productions. And this is after he himself had children, because at the time in 1977, he was single when he made Close Encounters. And he said, that is the one thing I would change. He says, if I made that movie now, I would not have Richard Dreyfuss's character go off with the aliens and abandon his family. He goes, he said, now that rings really wrong to me, and I would not do it that same way. And that applies, and that's him learning what David was saying, is because now Spielberg, like as a parent, would probably think, no parent would ever do that. So I can't write that into as my main character. And that's kind of what happened here. But again, we're dealing with, this was essentially like a nuclear family. I mean, they were divorced, but at one point they were a nuclear family. In many respects, in terms of the connections they still have, they are still in many ways, just not legally, like a nuclear family. He's still very on good relations with the ex-wife, so very close to the daughter. Their interactions are very family-like, but I'm sure that, RTD may not have that much, respect for the concept of a nuclear family. So I'm sure that it was easy for him to switch to playing the love story. But I was thinking about like Spielberg with that, it's the same thing. And I think what you yourself experience in life does color, what you write.
But what's even
Certainly
weirder
does.
is he's created this problem himself by giving Barclay that setup at the beginning. He didn't have to give Barclay a family. He didn't have to have all of that. He could have just had him as a single man who has this amazing love story with Soul. That actually would have added, I think more if he was single and if he sort of got really swept up. That's what I'm getting at here. Whereas he, like you've all pointed at, he has got a really good reason to stay on Earth, or on the land, sorry. He's got commitments, he's got responsibilities, he's got so many things that for him just to go running off into the sea, and the way it's framed to me is probably not coming back.
No.
Yeah.
He's not exactly going to meet up with her when she goes to the local library.
Them standing up and looking at Kate long distance, I think you could only read that as them saying goodbye.
Yeah, it felt like this was him saying, right, I've picked him aside, and it's
not like,
Salt.
I'll see you in 2 weeks, I'll be back,
So
let's take a break. Let's take a break for a couple of minutes, because we've got lots of comments to get to as well. And I think we've been through this, haven't we? At great depth already. Time to answer a call of nature. Maybe have a drink, grab a snack, I don't know, whilst our legends flog us all manner of stuff that was probably really, really bad for us back in the day. Doctor Who legends who at the time knew no better, even if we did. Christmas Tat, getting you in the Christmas spirit, coming right up. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. Enjoy the Type 40 Live Doctor Who ad break.
If you'd seen me this morning, rotten cold, market day ahead, wondering how I'd get through, till the wife told me, here, she says, day nurse, she says. What nurse, I says? Day nurse, she says.
Day Nurse, the new daytime cold relief from the night nurse people. Relieves shivers, headache, runny nose, sore throat and cough, all together but without drowsiness, so you can keep going through the day.
You'll get through easily, the wife says. And she was right.
New Day Nurse from Beecham, all-round cold relief that helps you through the day.
I am the new Remington's electric shaver. Twist my dial and I will obey you. At 1, I am gentle. At 2 and 3, I grow fiercer. At 4, I will annihilate the toughest whisker. 5 is for sideboards. 6 is for cleaning me. Thank you. That will be £8.19 and 6p.
Cool, mellow, satisfying St. Bruno. Flake already rubbed. A real pipe smoker's dream.
Welcome back to Type 40 Live, Rumble, X, YouTube, and Facebook are starting off Christmas week here and getting our teeth stuck deep into the war between the land and the sea. The end of the war. It came hot and heavy, sort of, or was it just sort of cold and unsatisfying? I don't know. Bring in the trifle, bring in the dessert course, and see if we can pick things up a little, I think. So where are we and how are we? What's going on? So yes, we've been through Unit's files, and I don't think any of us are really much the wiser. I've been through the laptops and through all those drawers too. While they've all been off in the basement, they've left this this rooftop office. They've left this deserted for us to plunder for any kind of sense and reason that we can find. We haven't done too badly. I don't think. But this is Christmas week, of course it is. We're getting into the Christmas spirit as well. So we're trying to be as generous as we can. Between us, how are we getting on? I don't know. You let us know. So we're talking about the final episode of The War Between the Land and the Sea, which is now streaming along with the rest of it there over on the iPlayer. You've been watching it too, I think, judging by all the comments in the live chat. So let's go and find out what they've got to say, what they thought about it all, and if maybe anybody has been able to make more sense of things than we have. Okay, so who's in here first? We've got Sandwich Gamer. Sandwich Gamer. What's a Sandwich Gamer? Says, what a disaster. Russell T Davies 2 ending for the spin-off and a cringe post-credits scene. Wasn't it before the credits? You talking about the coda? Are we talking about the coda? Did that come before the credits or after?
It was kind of before, mid, and after. It kind of was.
Do you think? Because obviously this was the scene, wasn't it, where we spoke about on the last live stream. Russell T Davies had sort of put it out there. It wasn't a press release as such, but he had said, hadn't he, that there's this scene at the end, and you really don't want to miss it because it's a really, really good bit, and something happens with someone in particular. I wouldn't say he bigged it up, but he did. He did draw our attention to it, and I think the danger could be that now that we've seen it all, that this could be the only scene that people end up talking about, because that is what tends to happen in Doctor Who circles. Do you think this scene could overshadow the rest of it, Charlotte, and be what fans talk about indefinitely in the same way that they do the Isaac Newton gaffe when it comes to Wild Blue Yonder? These things, they have a long shadow.
I think this is going to be the main talking point because there wasn't enough action during the episode to sort of counter it. Like you said, the main appeal of Barclay and Salt wasn't really in this episode a lot because Salt wasn't in it for a good chunk. And I think the nature of this scene, it's going to get people either like David who are okay with it and can see why it happened, and then you've got people like me and Gary and yourself who are more just, no, I don't buy it. It's sort of designed, I think, to get people talking, and that's sadly what Russell has admitted himself. Yeah. He's writing now for online content. And this felt like, once again, he was like, oh, I know what will get people all riled up. I'll have Kate do this a little bit to me anyway.
Do you think, Charlotte, that, just really quick, I just want to ask, so do you think, Charlotte, after the scenes that Dan showed us, at the end where she goes, I said, pick it up, it should have like flashed to like a slide that just says, don't litter?
We've got lots more comments here to get to. Stephen Braddock has joined us. Lots of comments from Stephen in the live chat. Merry Christmas, Stephen. They should have called it Wet Side Story.
Stephen, no.
Straight out of the cracker there. The Zero Room has also joined us and says, my wife told me how she grew up watching Captain Planet. Just the title sequence. So terrible. So this reminded him of Captain Planet. I don't think, in all fairness, I didn't find this series preachy. It was a clear theme. It told a concise story of purpose. And so I didn't feel preached by this at all. It was very clear what it was about. and I think it had a certain shape to it. But I think to call this preachy would be unfair. But I think it could have been more. I think it could have actually gone strangely deeper, Gary, at the time where, in line with what you were saying earlier on, and at the time when it could have gone to greater depth, and also showed us some actual warfare too. That was the part that we seem to have missed out. That's the missing episode of this, which nobody, even Film is Fabulous, are never going to be able to find that, are they? Lee Smith's Marine Boy had more action. I've never seen Marine Boy, so I don't know. I have to take your word for it, Lee Smith, but Merry Christmas. Good to see you there in the live chat. AR watching YouTube says, I'm glad to say I didn't watch 1 minute of this. But most of it's been pretty, in my opinion, most of it's been pretty good. I think this has been, generally speaking, a surprisingly good event series that was fit for purpose. But I think it's fair to say the kind of viewer, because people watch things differently. A lot of us, if the ending is a letdown or is insubstantial, then a great many people do feel like they've wasted their time. So results are going to vary when it comes to this one. It's not going to get universally damned at all. But I can't see many people universally praising it either. But yeah, we're happy to help whoever you are watching on YouTube. Stephen O'Neill is here, all the way from Wigan, I think, and says that there was more action and excitement in Larry Grayson's Generation Game Christmas special from 1979 on BBC 4 than this. So we've got various puns like that. There was more action in this or that or the other. So, we won't read them all out. We get the general gist of it, everybody. But the general idea is that a lot of people do feel that we needed to see something kicking off.
Yeah. Well, the irony is, Dan, is that, sorry to just jump in there, but the irony is Russell gives us boomy, boomy, bang, bang when we don't need boomy, boomy, bang, bang. And when we expect boomy, boomy, bang, bang, he doesn't give us boomy, boomy, bang, bang. So,
to be fair, David, I have to disagree there. I think the problem is, in those opening episodes, they set up stakes. They set up that it was going to be these two species meeting for the first time, and then we're going to be threatening each other. The aqua kind were giving demands. We had to get it done now. 5 years was too long. And then you had those little bits of like the rubbish being chucked back on land, or the iceberg thing in this episode. But they were so spaced out in between a lot of talking that I can understand completely why people are feeling shortchanged. Because if you set up a stake, if you set up this, it's gonna kick off, folks, you need to deliver, and I just don't think they delivered, personally. Yeah. I think that's the issue here. You can't promise something and then not do it. I think if they hadn't made the promise, people probably would have been a lot kinder.
Fly Highland says the first 3 episodes were okay, but the last 2 were god-awful. So mixed results there for Fly Highland. And Tony HP says Russell T Davies is OTT for the BBC and should get his P45. Well done. Rose Kirby's joined us with a hip, hip, hooray. Type 40 blessings and greetings. Happy holiday season. Merry Christmas, Rose. Good to see you there. Hope you have a great time over the coming few days. Fish are friends, not good, says
Fisher family. Fisher family, remember that.
Talk about finding. It sounds like something from Finding Nemo. Is that where you got that from?
No, remember, I mean, the guy says no, but dogs are domesticated. He says Fisher family.
Oh, okay.
At the beginning, yeah.
Nicholas Horton suggests they were basically taking a shot at dog walkers. I think could be stretching it a bit, Nicholas. But
yeah, okay, very good.
We've got the bottom line is that this was miles above the David Tennant specials and Shooter Gatwa specials and seasons, says the Zero Room. Well, that's a conversation for another time, I think. Yeah. But we are going to start, obviously, as a fandom. We're going to be taking stock, aren't we, over the last 2-3 years worth of life as a Doctor Who fan. The rise and the fall of watching a production come together and deals made and plans put in place. and then the reality of what actually happens. So yeah, we will be returning to that conversation. Of course we will. Sandwich Gamer adds, was it the drug in Barkley causing his pains in his neck? I hear swimmers, people who swim a lot and train for swimming, David, competitive swimming, talk a lot about their neck muscles, pains in their necks. And I thought that perhaps that was the thing with Barkley, because he mentioned pains in his neck the previous week because he'd been swimming, he'd been so deep. And of course, she'd pulled him up to the surface, hadn't she, to get away from that bomb. So I think it's a similar sort of thing that they're pointing to there.
Yeah, my missus, back in her younger days, was a competitive swimmer and went over to Europe to swim for the UK universities. And her neck and shoulders are in absolute bits even today. And yeah, you're absolutely right there, Dan. It's they do get those pains.
Well, I thought the pains were because they were developing. Like that was the
me
style
too.
of the gills.
Yeah, that's
also
it.
possible.
The muscles had been, when you're training for something, your muscle tissue gets torn and gradually gets, so your body changes. That's what training means. So your body will change. So he'd been exposed to that sort of intense exercise using muscles that he didn't know that he'd got, I suppose, and that had stimulated this sort of growth and this development, which they'd enhanced chemically. That was what I took as well.
Yeah.
To go with the pain, he said the only time he didn't have it was when he was in water.
Yes.
So like I said, my read was this is like all the symptoms before the reveal of the guilt. Like that they are like putting little things of he's having pain, he's only not having it when he's in water. I think he said there was a ringing in his ear, so it seemed to be little things to say basically his body was metamorphic, sort of changing. And then at the end you're going to get the reveal, which I guessed, it's gills, so they can be together.
You're
Russell
giving
T.
the RTD one,
totally agree.
and giving the real life version.
Russell T. Davis still can't write conclusions, says Matthew Pounder. And Stephen O'Neill asks, what happened to Rust? That was an idea floated out there by Tide in the previous episode, wasn't it, David? And it was quite a chilling moment. That they just never did it, did they? I suppose they just never got
that's another one we can miss off.
And also, they never explained the whole switch and gender thing.
I didn't think they would. That was just like I said when we reviewed that episode. That was them just making it clear that even though they'd anthropomorphized fish life to make them look like us, that they were still another species. So I didn't expect that would go anywhere at all. Although it was quite effective in context, but it hit some scar tissue for a very particular reason, didn't it? After years of identity politics.
Well, for me, I just remember I said, I just hope it's not a one-off thing. And lo and behold.
No, I don't mind. I think that little things like that to show that yes, they are not like us. Their physiognomy, their biology, their reproductive cycle, the things that they eat, how they live is completely alien to us. I don't mind things like that. I don't mind things like that at all. I cry every day, but the wife never listens. Says Tony HP. You're secret safe with us, mate. You can cry to us anytime you like. Rose says the episode didn't make any sense to me. It looked like a totally different storyline. I think it was presented differently. It looked the same in some respects, the same but different. And there were reshoots of this. And although they claim that it was all directed by Dylan Holmes Williams, it wasn't. I mean, that probably happens now and again where the names that are on credits aren't always the people who've actually done all the work. And that's not to take anything away from this director, because I do think he did a great job. But there were reshoots on this. It wasn't a troubled production as such, but as I understand it, they did have to keep going back to it. And the truth of the matter is, it is quite a polished production. I think it certainly delivers on the potential of proving that content material created by those partners could look like it belongs on a global streaming platform. I think that's what this proved, that Doctor Who, the reinvention of Doctor Who itself, had not. Sandwich Gamer says, I doubt we're going to get a season 2 of this show. Well, it's unlikely now. Well, having said that, I mean, we've just we're about to get a second season of The Night Manager after 9 years. With Tom Hiddleston. So never say never. But as we understand it, sources close to us here at Type 40, as we understand it, the entire thing was indeed to be sold as a proof of concept. And there are early plans for ways to expand this, that there would be more seasons of this, but that it would be a sort of anthology format that would probably all involve some of the sort of espionage thriller aspects that you find so enjoyable, David. I think that was, as I'm led to believe it, that was the hook for this, that there would be potentially an anthology that could spring out of this in the way that American Horror Story and those kind of shows could. But it's quite likely now, with the Disney deal going tits up, it's more likely that we won't get that. But, you know, we got, as I say never. Never say never. If you're going to put the war in the title, I want a bloody war, says Anthony Parkinson. I don't think that's unreasonable at all. Bill Silver says, the last scene, I kind of get it. The powers that be have irreparably wrecked the planet deliberately for profit. And I am angry too. And those responsible, I'd want to give them all a good belting. It's not that the message that's delivered in this is wrong at all. It's just the fact that I think we have heard it several times, and it's sort of, how do you tell it again in 2025 without making people roll their eyes? And I think this show got away with it. The impression I get is that it did. As I say, I didn't feel preached to at all, and in my experience so far, the fans that I've spoken to that are using the word preach a lot are people who were saying that before it even aired. So I think that if you prepare yourself to feel a certain way, you're probably going to feel a certain way. Different people have got different tolerance levels to this sort of stuff. So I didn't find it preachy at all. With that being said, I don't think it delivered a new message. But again, I will rewatch this and I'll see how I feel about it. But I thought this was fine. Vincent Franklin played the Prime Minister, says, and several people have put that name in the live chat. So thank you, everybody. And Bill adds that Type 40 have been very kind to this. Well, this episode in particular, Bill, or the whole production, I've been kind to it because I've enjoyed it. I was disappointed by this, but 4/5 of this have pleased me. So I'm going to be kind to it. I mean, have you been kind to it? Do you think we've been kind to it, Gary? And, you know, what do you think?
Obviously, definitely mixed. I mean, I would be more on the negative side. Charlotte definitely is, I think, mixed. Is that right?
Yeah.
Because you always point out, I always love the fact that throughout these reviews, Charlotte always starts out her comments with, the one thing I liked is, and then I realized
one thing sometimes.
No, I think we're mixed. I think that it just, you know, I think that's what's great about this channel, is that, you know, you get a lot of different voices and opinions. We're not just one kind of like mono opinion. So
my wife asked me that very same question today about, how do you feel about this series? And she has no inclination for Doctor Who. She sort of like, how can I say it? She puts up with the fact that I have a large Doctor Who collection around the house, and she just sort of goes over her head. But she said, if you'd, and this was the key, she said, if you'd paid, I don't know, $8.99 at Cineworld to go and watch this, how would you feel when you came out of the cinema? I'd go, I'd be all right with it. Yeah, absolutely fine. I wouldn't go and buy it on DVD. I wouldn't go and pay $8.99 to watch it again. But as a single standalone thing that I've gone and watched, I'd be fine with it. It wouldn't be on my all-time greats, but I'd have enjoyed it. I'd have found, as I said, I found some of it predictable, some of it simple, some of it jarring. But yeah, and that's, you know, if that's so, it's not that I'm being kind to it. I'm just saying, yeah, I'm okay with it.
These are our honest reactions and opinions. No party lines and no bullshit. That's what Type 40's Always done. It's the
Yeah.
reason why we have incurred the wrath of a lot of very obsessive, ideologically captured people on one particular side of the fandom over the years. I've never listened to them and adjusted my opinions to suit them. I'm not about to start doing it for anybody else, whichever side of the aisle they're on. Type 40 remains, whether it's the podcast or the live stream. Genuine opinions, no politicization. We are fans of the Doctor Who brand, of course. Well, that's what brought us all together. But the fact of the matter is, this is authentic podcasting by people who aren't afraid to share their real opinions, whatever the weather. So, yeah, just that's how it is. I don't care what people may have to say about that one way or the other. Connor Sullivan in the live chat says, I wanted the Prime Minister to get his comeuppance like Torchwood contact lenses in Children of Earth. Also, I don't understand the dog scene. Do they not have doors to keep the dogs in the house? I wondered about that. I thought, have they gone through the cat flaps, or has everybody left their window open, or something like? Because dogs are, they're very, they can be very resourceful, can't they, to get out of a certain spot? But I did wonder. I mean, maybe that's only half the dogs. Maybe the ones that couldn't get out were fine, and they didn't end up fish food.
I can tell you for a fact, if my dog heard that whistle, she wouldn't be able to get out their house. She's that old at this point.
Yeah.
It would just be a process to walk.
We might have some of the answers to these questions right under our noses, everybody, because strangely enough, a lot of strange occurrences have occurred over the last few days. Not all of them connected with Christmas. For example, can you hear the bells? Can you suddenly hear bells everywhere? That's very strange. Can you hear bells? No, but the emergence, the manifestation of a brand new bit of VAM attached to the war between the land and the sea. There's no Doctor Who Unleashed, but what we do have is this: the war between the land and the sea interview with the writer. So this turned up in the middle of the night, believe it or not, and it's a full interview and behind the scenes talk with both Pete McTighe and Russell T Davies. Only it's not on the BBC, Gary. And Charlotte, it's not on Disney Plus either. You can only get this. You can only get this special feature on Amazon Prime.
Oh, for God's sake!
Oh, we're back to Moffat years when like a bit of something was for America and not for us, aren't we?
Wait a minute. But
In the UK as well.
the show itself is not on Amazon Prime.
No,
right?
But Doctor Who Unleashed is, and has Doctor Who Unleashed is on Amazon Prime. And there's been several bits of supplementary material on Amazon Prime over the years. But strangely, this special interview and a behind the scenes feature on the war between the land and the sea is now available internationally. On Amazon
So they drop
Prime.
it. They drop it in the middle of the night in a place that nobody would think to look for it.
Basically.
Seems so.
Who is in charge of their marketing?
So I suppose some of the questions that we've all had and the people watching there on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook and X, maybe some of it is revealed there over on Amazon Prime. Ashvin's in the live chat. Good to see you, Ashvin. Merry Christmas. Me and a friend were so confused by Barclay turning into a fish. We kept trying to remember if they set it up earlier in the series, but this is just another silly decision, much like by generation. I think that's a perfectly valid take. I do.
And the problem is, the more you do this, you are losing trust with the viewers. Because, like I said when I brought that point up, that's a major bit.
Yeah.
Just to have no context. Like I said, I think they were trying to set it up, but it wasn't really explained. And you can't. I feel like Russell and Pete also has done this with the Lucky Day episode. These massive things happening in universe or plot, and it just feels like they've gone, should we explain it? Nah, they don't need an explanation.
Who needs explanations? Who needs those? Who needs a global streaming platform? Maybe this could be an indicator that Amazon Prime could be back in the offing as a potential partner for this. Now that it's all gone south between Disney Plus and Bad Wolf and BBC Studios, let's not forget all of that is over. So it doesn't really matter how this plays on Disney Plus ultimately, because it's all done. How it's played on the BBC, however, is another matter. We do have the ratings, of course, to look at. We've got an overnight figure as well as other metrics for this event series, and it paints an interesting picture. I think, David, obviously you're a resident statistician, and we've been watching this as closely as I think is wise, because it's easy to become obsessive, and forensic on these matters, where it to a ridiculous extent. So let's have a quick recap of where we were, where we have been up to now, the lay of the war between the land and the sea, if you like. So here were the overnights that we had up to now. So we've got the 4 figures, and obviously they premiered, hadn't they, in those 2 double bills. And you pointed out on the last of these review shows that there's definitely a pattern there of up, down, one after the other, implying that perhaps people would seek it out, maybe after the fact, on catch up if they'd watched the first one and simply had to get to bed or make some lunch or do whatever in the way that adults do late on a Sunday night.
Yes. Real world problems.
And these have been joined by the consolidated figures. So we've got, does this bear out your inclinations there? So our consolidated 7-day figure for Homo Aqua episode 1 went up to 3.98 million. And then episode 2 went up to 3.29 million. Where does that, what's the pattern there? Is the gain roughly around the same?
It's what that shows is that sadly, I hate to be a know-it-all and say I was absolutely right. That shows that more people caught up with episode 2 than episode 1, which would indicate that more people decided that they were only going to watch one episode on one night. Sorry, it's horrible being right, isn't it?
That's exactly what you said. Exactly what you said last week.
So that was my theory, because and look, it's gone up again for episode 3 overnight. Right, okay. So one would expect more people to watch episode 4 on catch up than episode 3, and I know you haven't got these figures for the graph study because they came in really late. But my media insider, Dan,
yes,
who is a very good media insider source, I have to say, said that the Deep got 3.41 million. Okay, and the Witch of the Waterfall got 2.9 million on catch up, which is an increase of 1.2 million for the Witch and the Waterfall, and just under $1 million for the consolidated for the Deep. So that again shows that.
So what you're saying. Let's just make sure people know what we're saying. We have had come in just before we went live 2 further consolidated figures.
Yes, they're not been published officially yet, so we've got a bit of an exclusive there. Thank you, my media insider.
But I have a question, David.
Yes,
and I know that this is interpretation. This is not the hard numbers. You're just giving hard numbers. I get that.
Yeah,
but it seems to me that my initial gut reaction to the fact that over the course of the 7 days, if it goes from 3.41 then to 2.9, my personal subjective interpretation is that people gave up after episode 3.
No, it's just
because then why wouldn't the numbers be more consistent, like closer together?
Because what you're seeing is the fact that you're transmitting 2 episodes on the same one night. Okay, so that's 90 minutes worth of stuff. So what you're starting off from a lower base point. So what we're actually looking is how many people caught up. So we've got 0.9 million who would choose to catch up with it from 2.45 million. But then as you're starting off from a lower base on 1.7 million, you've actually got 1.2 million catching up with episode 4. So that actually shows there is still a healthy appetite for people catching up with the program. Do you see what I'm getting
No,
at?
I know. I hear you. I get it.
Yeah.
So these are.
If you weren't getting that appetite, what you would expect to see are the numbers for catch up dropping. So
Yeah, that makes
below
sense.
that of episode 3. Okay, so if you got say 0.7 million people catching up for episode 4, I'd go, oh, that's a bit disappointing. That's a bit of a worry. So what I would then expect to see is that the overnight figure for episode 5, if my theory is correct, which so far it is, I would expect to see the overnight figure for episode 5 to go up, because that's the pattern it's showing. How much by, okay, is a matter for discussion, but it certainly doesn't say that the views are tanking. It certainly just doesn't say that the views are going down dramatically. It is, for goodness sake, it's performing far better than the second series of Doctor Who on overnights, at least, for at least 3 or 4 episodes. I think with the consolidated figures, it's performing really well compared to some of the episodes on series 2. And if we consider that Shoot is best consolidated for a series was 4.0 for series 1 and series 2, not including the specials, was 4.06 million, followed by 4.01 million for the start of I think 4.06 was for the 3rd episode or 4th episode, and for season 1, and there's 4.01 million for one of the consolidated plus 7s. That's season 2, and as you can see, there's a lot of good consolidated plus 7s for the war against land between the land and sea compared to what we got for the main show. So I would expect to see a fluctuation between the first episode of a premiere of a drama premiering. You've also got to consider that any overnight figure to yesterday, it was the main weekend where people also travel before Christmas, so that could have affected it. And whatever the figure may be, I do anticipate it to be higher than episode 4.
So just to backtrack for the people who may not have seen or taken on board what we're saying, this is exclusive to Type 40 Live. This hasn't been released yet, but these are the consolidated ratings for episodes 3 and 4 of The War Between the Land and the Sea, which our media insider has got to us ahead of the live stream, David. So thank you for that. There is a pattern here, isn't there? Interest is holding to one degree or another, even if you could say, well, the series isn't setting the broadcasting world on fire. But the people who are invested do seem to be making a point on catching it however they can.
It's... Go on, sorry, Charlotte.
I was just going to say, I will be intrigued the consolidated for the finale, because
me too.
I've sort of been looking a little bit online, and I've had some of the people who I chat with sort of look online.
Well, here we've got the overnight here for the finale, Charlotte. That has come in. So the overnight figure from last night for the end of the war has been published, and it comes in. Am I surprised by this to some extent? Maybe I am. It is 1.79 million on episode 5 overnight.
I had in my head, I thought 2 things could happen for this finale. I thought it will either keep to that pattern that we talked about and David pointed out, or I think there's a risk of it not having a big uptake. And that's because I think this whole romance plot line could have put people off. I think it had that quality, possibly, for some parts of the audience to go, this is too... It was too much of a leap for certain people. That's what I sort of thought could possibly happen, but I didn't know what it was going to do because it has been holding, like you said before. For me, that is not a good finale figure for your overnight. I think it should have. I think if it was higher, I think that would have shown that people were on board with the romance and other elements that were more introduced in that like last batch of episodes, The Deep and The Witch and of the Waterfall. And I think possibly looking at reaction to this finale today and a little bit talking with other people, I see a lot more negative about this final episode. People reacting a lot more with issues.
Really?
So I think there's a chance, and it's what you were talking about, Dan, people really need these finales to work a lot. They have expectations, they have stuff that they want to happen, and I've got a suspicion we will see. I think the finale could possibly suffer when it comes to the consolidated now, especially after seeing that overnight.
I mean, so if word gets out, oh, I saw the final one,
Yes.
you're going to be disappointed. You know, that people think, oh, well, you know, maybe I'll watch something else. I've got that party to go to. I've got this to do. I've got that to watch. Yeah.
Or if just some of the stuff gets out online. Like you said, if people are like, oh, so was there action? Was there a confrontation? How did they resolve it? And if they hear, oh, it was done in 2 minutes. Oh, there wasn't much action, really. Yeah. And they ended with like I said, a quite out there scene for Kate, whether you buy it or not.
Out there.
I think that selection, because I think that's what's going to get out when it comes to people talking to each other, it might put people off, even if they have enjoyed what's gone before. Because like we all said, we're creatures of habit. We really want finales to land, and I think that's, you can't blame. That's how
not much. It's not much to ask for. validation and justification of the investment of our time.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
And so far, because I do need to go in a minute, I think this series has been benefiting from word of mouth a lot. I think actually a lot of people have said, you know what, you might not have liked the main show, but this is better. Give it a go. There's better character work. The direction's better. The music's better. There's more of, like David said, if you like political intrigue, there's more stuff to it. I think it's benefited a lot from that. So I think now it's at a risk with the way they've done this final episode to sort of, and I wasn't trying to do a pun, but to sink it a little bit if they're not careful.
Very good.
So we will see. But I do need to go.
Good night,
one last pumpkin time before
Yes.
Christmas.
Yes,
Charlotte.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you so much again. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. We'll speak to you soon, I don't doubt. But good night and have a brilliant time over Christmas.
Enjoy it with all your families or friends or whoever you spend it with, everybody.
Lovely. Happy Christmas.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
So there we have
it.
Well,
the good thing is it didn't go down. And that's a positive on it.
Well, but I mean, it's essentially static. I mean, it's only what 90,000 difference.
Yeah, but it's still not gone down, Gary. Yeah. And that's the point. It hasn't tanked. Because when something tanks, it would start off at 2.8 million and have roughly around 0.8 million at the end. It's a zigzag, what we would call. But the figures that mean the most will be those consolidated +7 figures, and they are, look, for a single drama, they are.
But
hitting the BBC's target.
Here's the thing. Though. I'm not disputing the numbers. The numbers are hard facts. I'm not disputing that. But I mean, when you consider, I mean, has there been overall, because I'm not a big on social media about, with X or all those things, but has there been like a huge, like ongoing buzz to this to where people would be curious? Oh, I want to see how it wraps up, all of that. I mean, has it been trending or is there a buzz or anything like that, which might lead you to believe that there will be
It's been trending consistently over the entire time it's been on.
All right.
And largely, from what I've seen, most of the talk has been quite upbeat, even though it's been along the lines of, but why, kind of like Luke was saying, well, yeah, it is good, but if you're in Doctor Who circles, the attitude is, yeah, it's good, but why can't the main show be like this?
Yeah.
So it's good with reservations, with a caveat, is the impression that I get. So again, it's not set the world on fire. It's not set Doctor Who fandom on fire for a number of reasons. There are people who just hate it. There are people who have hate watched it. There are people who hate it and they haven't seen it. There are people who are politically just will not give it or anybody involved in the making of it any quarter at all for political reasons. So that it's a broader church than ever, realistically, when it comes to this series. Because again, people have been beaten down by the brand over the last couple of years, and they don't want their Christmases, I suppose, in the run up to Christmases, ruined by something which could turn out to be another disappointment,
right?
Or worse, something that could make them feel bad about themselves. So the collapse of something as preposterous, you could say, as something as audacious as setting up a Whoniverse, a lot of people find that quite delicious. The absence of the Whoniverse branding from this has not gone unnoticed. It has reappeared, though, over on Spotify, weirdly enough, where Heroes by Lorne Balfe and Alison Goldfrapp has charted in the last day or two. I'd forgotten that this cover version was even in the show. And when it was on screen, I thought it sounded insipid and forgettable. But it seems
was that the song over the end credits? Okay.
Over the slow motion sequences where Barclay was sort of being bust out of some compound he was in or whatever.
Okay.
Like I say, I just found it instantly forgettable. And I've loved the music to The War Between the Land and the Sea. I thought it was great. Lorne Balfe, fantastic. But this cover version did nothing for me at all. But there does seem to be a lot of people streaming it, downloading it. So, okay, whatever. Wouldn't hurt for us all to be the same. But the Whoniverse is back. Look, the Whoniverse banner from the Whoniverse. That's the first time I've seen it anywhere near this. Miracles happen.
I guess, you know what? At the end of the day, I was just thinking that one of the things that is frustrating to me, and obviously I watched all 5 hours, and I still, at the end of the day, don't know what the point of view of this story was. Like, was I supposed to sympathize with the desperate humans? Was I supposed to sympathize with the Aquakind defending themselves? I still don't know what the point of view.
I think we're meant to sympathize with both, and I think we're both meant to be. You could look at it, be more mindful, and take the idea of environmental crisis seriously, and to be responsible and to recycle and to not dump stuff. But to be honest, I mean, for the most part, I think they're preaching to the wrong crowd. I think there is a section of society, of British society, who aren't as mindful of things like that, who aren't as careful about disposing of their rubbish, who likely don't recycle in any way, and who do sort of fly tip and do all these things. But in my experience, they are, shall we say, newcomers to Britain. And I don't think that The War Between the Land and the Sea is speaking to them. It's when we did the preview of The War Between the Land and the Sea, I said that this is all well and good. Russell T Davies and Pete McTighe and whoever else deciding that a 5-part mini-series, event series about this on a particular topic, on this crisis as they see it, it's perfectly valid, and it's a story it probably is a story that's worth telling again within the Doctor Who universe, because it hasn't been told for a time. It's not as if it's a waste of time going back to it, but there are broader, greater, more existential crises that are facing certainly the British public and most of the Western world. Where is the 5-part event series about that, Russell? You fucking coward.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it would be just as, again, this could be like, well, you know, that's a different story to be told. But I just think that the idea of when humanity is pushed to the limit in terms of, you know, fighting for its survival, how much is like allowable. Is it like it doesn't matter, everything is on the table in order for humanity to save itself? And if they cross a line, is it justified? I mean, that to me is an equally interesting story that could have been played out or seeded through this, but that I don't think that was what they wanted.
Wasn't a priority. No. I mean, as with a lot of things, Doctor Who fans are very inventive, very creative, very industrious, with active minds. And many of us will be sort of wondering to ourselves, there could have been another way. There should have been another way, a better way in which this series could have ended. And Gary, you're one of them, aren't you? You've got your own theory about how this could have ended. And you were so moved but with your own instincts of where this could have gone, that you have
yes, this was what I would have liked to see as the finale, not only of this story, but of this entire era. And thanks to the genius of one of our regular chatters, came up with this.
So between you have reached this conclusion. This is the way it should have ended, everybody.
This should have been the post-credits.
Dad?
Hello, Kate. Goodbye, Disney.
That should have been the post-credit scene.
I think I've just gone back to the 1970s and seen some of Spike Milligan's Q series again.
Merry Christmas, Garbage.
Yes,
Gary,
thank you, Garbage.
I don't know whether I should be more worried about your mind.
Well, hey, I thought, to bring back the Cyber Brig, have him blast all the Aquakind into, dust, and then reunite for a big Christmas hug.
Well called, David, says Stephen Braddock in the live chat.
Stephen.
Trek Matt UK was in with the overnight ratings as if David hadn't got those. Come on, Trek Matt. Good to see you. Good to see you, Matt. Hope you're well. Enjoy your Christmas. Have a very tricky Christmas. Matthew Pounder says that people couldn't be bothered to switch off the previous programs. That's are you being serious, Matthew?
I think it's being a slightly tongue-in-cheek. Yes,
you could say that about literally any program on TV at any given time, can you? Yeah, be interesting to see what the consolidated figure is for the final. Yeah, who knows? We'll probably get that in a week's time, David. Around a week's time.
Well, with a bit of Christmas going on, it probably might be a bit late.
Could be a bit longer, couldn't it? Could be a bit longer.
Yeah.
We've got Chris Chatfield says they never explained much how Salt became a bloke for a sec when she got angry. What was that? Well, they told you what it was all about at the time, Chris. To be fair, they did say that it was a biological thing. That's something that amphibians do. So they did explain at the time. Spot on, Charlotte, says Matthew Pounder. Happy Christmas, Charlotte, says Stephen Braddock. And Merry Christmas too from Lonnie there at On Comics. Good to see you, pal. Another one from Bill Silver too, of course. We'll pass on all your wishes to Charlotte. Phew, Doctor Who is saved, says Matthew Pounder. I think that could be a sarcastic comment.
I think we're high on the sarcasm levels. Yeah.
It doesn't mean the Doctor Who is saved simply because they've made a good, fit for purpose event series. It does mean that there is ability there, that they're capable of making something that's fit for purpose. There's nothing wrong with admitting that when it actually happens. There was a huge buzz up to episode 3, says Stephen Braddock. But from episode 4, it started to go downhill with the romance. I don't know. Be interesting to watch, to see what Doctor Who fans at work say tomorrow. Well, it's the general public are the people to speak to about this. And most of them have enjoyed this. In my experience, the people who have found it have really got quite into it. Davy's in. Davey says,
hello, Davey.
Evening panel, just got in from work. Well, that was underwhelming shite, wasn't it? I think, yeah, I found it. I did find it underwhelming. Depends where you work, isn't it? Matthew Pounder says there's no such thing as hate watching. Come on, Matthew, behave yourself. Of course there is. We all know there is. Yeah, nobody liked the David Bowie cover. No.
I quite liked it. Sorry. I'm so sorry.
Did? But the people in the live chat was talking about you liked it. I usually like Alison Goldfrapp. I think she's great, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe
I was all right with it. I was all right with it in the end.
Have you heard the full thing?
I really I'm sorry.
Have you heard the full thing? Because I haven't. I only heard it within the show.
I have only heard it within the show, but I think I'm a Celeb trolled the BBC with the first, with their introduction to the final by playing "We Could Be Heroes" over the I'm a Celeb introduction to the final. So they trolled the BBC by playing that version. So I did hear quite a lot of it, and I quite enjoy it. So yeah, I'll row back on that one.
Dan Drew Tail says we need a reboot away from the campy and boring Lovecraft style horror and sci-fi. Lovecraft style horror and sci-fi.
Kind of a return to Hinchcliffe.
Oh, I see. Away from the campy and bring in Lovecraft style horror and sci-fi. Yeah. Lovecraft doesn't do anything for me at all. No. But I see why a lot of people like it. I just think Doctor Who needs a good rest, a good long rest. Golden Age Geek in the live chat. Good. Merry Christmas, Goldie. Lovely to see you in the live chat, mate. Have a fabulous time. Merry Christmas to you and yours, as always.
Yes, Merry Christmas.
And yeah, that's where the live chat is. Of course, if you did miss it, several people in the live chat, like the Zero Room, didn't catch this. Not only is it up on the iPlayer, but it's out on physical media soonish. I mean, it was listed originally for being out the day after Boxing Day. That's not the case after all. It's now scheduled for release on DVD and Blu-ray, David, February the 23rd, 2026. So you can pre-order, take your pick, whichever of these three releases, these three versions you fancy. So there is the DVD version, a 3-disc DVD set. That's $24.99. There's your standard Blu-ray 2-disc edition. That's $32.99. And dead in the middle there with a frigging terrible piece of artwork is the War Between the Land and the Sea Blu-ray Steel Book edition, which is the same 2 discs as is in the standard Blu-ray, but you've got that hard steel book casing and the custom artwork. That'll set you back £44.99. Yes, a bit steep in it for 5 parts.
I'm only getting this if that Amazon Prime Russell T Davies interviews on it.
So fair enough. Well, you get a deep dive. But I can't really say anything. I've done that gag at least 5 times across the last few editions of this show. A deep dive behind the scenes documentary. You get character dossiers and set tours. And you do get, this could swing it for you, Gary, you get the 2025 re-edit of the classic serial, The Sea Devils, into its 90-minute form there from the master of editing, Liz Benkel.
As you know, Dan, you and I both really had a lot of time for that re-edit.
Yeah, I did like it.
We thought it was a very good, and if I get this, it will be for that.
Oh, fair play. There you go, Ben. Take that one to the bank, mate. Maybe an international release will follow, but of course the series is still expected to stream on Disney Plus sometime in early-ish 2026. Obviously, we won't know really until it turns up, and most people in Britain aren't going to care now because it's been shown here. But obviously, if you're overseas, it could be the only chance you get to see it legitimately. You're going to want to, get it watched, have a look, and get your own take on it. I can understand that, but the physical media is out. That's February the 26th. There for the DVD, Blu-ray, and the Steelbook. Let us know which one you're going for. Okay, what else is there to take in? I think we've covered the majority. Chris of it. Chris Rea's passed away at Christmas.
Yes.
I saw that earlier on. Driving home for Christmas.
I'm so upset by that. Yeah, he's not driving home now, unfortunately. But my favourite song, because I saw it in the chat as we were starting, favourite Chris Rea song, and I urge you to go and look it up. In the mid-90s, he did a sort of project called La Passion, I can't say it, La Passione, with Shirley Bassey and a whole other people. Yeah, it's an album. I think it was a film as well. It might have been a film as well. But there's a track called "Girl in a Sports Car," and it's about 6 minutes long. Go for the long version on YouTube, and it's simply the most gorgeous song. Wow, it is orchestra. It is just wonderful. It is just an amazing
I think
song.
I've
It's
heard that.
beautiful. Yeah, it's got his rich vocals on there. His grizzly vocals, or however gruff vocals, but orchestrally it is amazing. So ditch the gold frap and go and look up Chris Rea's "Girl in a Sports Car" on YouTube, the longer version. It is it's haunting, beautiful song, absolutely gorgeous, musically
I always think the
perfect.
gold frap sounds like some really expensive funky coffee drink you'd get from Costa that's going to cost you about £8.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, poor old Chris Rea. God bless you, Chris. Thank you for all your music.
Oh, that's really, really sad. I mean, my musical hero, one of my big musical heroes, certainly my favourite male recording artist of all time, George Michael. He passed away on Christmas Day 9 years ago, I think, and it is getting up to that time. Chris Rea, bless him. Yeah, I love driving home for Christmas. I'll be honest, I can't. Auberge, that was a Chris Rea track, wasn't it? I remember Auberge.
Oh yes.
The one big Chris Rea song that I remember here, it was a while back, but it's actually my favorite song of his. It was a hit over here. It's called "Fool If You Think It's Over."
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, that was. I really like that song.
Who sang that Christmas song? A Spaceman Came a Pumping. Who did that?
Chris de Burgh.
Chris de Burgh. I know it's called a Spaceman Came a Traveling, but I always call it a Spaceman Came a Pumping. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So rest in peace, Chris Rea, obviously. Okay. Yes. Where were we? War Between the Land and the Sea. For me, it'll chiefly be memorable for the relationship between these two central characters. I always liked Gugu Mbatha Raw, even though I've seen her in some terrible things, such as Loki, the Marvel show on Disney Plus. Hopefully, she'll start turning up in better shows now, getting better parts. Russell Tovey. I've had rather the change of heart concerning Russell Tovey, so maybe I won't be quite so dismissive of him in the future. Merry Christmas, Russell, if you're watching, I suppose. And let's, you know what, since it's Christmas, let's have another one of these.
Incredible. Spend $4.99 on an Iceland chicken and get free potatoes, peas, and lemon meringue pie worth £4.37. Iceland, make it easy. For Mum.
My name is Martin.
Hello, Martin.
I have been to the edge. There's toppings at the edge. Loads of toppings piled really high on a thin, crisp base. And you know the best thing? There's no outer crust. Just chunky, tangy toppings that go all the way. When I'm at the edge, I feel like I'm king of the world. I'm Mr. Invincible. Yeah!
The Edge from Pizza Hut. Have you been to the edge?
My Christmas by Alison. I got a lovely new dress, and Murray loved me in it. And Nick got a super pullover with a puppy on it. And Grandpa played Jingle Bells again, just like last year. And Jason got a smashing present that made everybody laugh. And Daddy did a terrific magic show. And everybody had the most wonderful Christmas ever. And Mummy made the gravy.
I thought you were cutting down this year.
I have. Because it's 3 for 2 at Boots, I got the cheapest one free. Disco ball, raw jelly gift sets, so this was free. Okay.
All right.
They've got mix and match on thousands of gifts, which means I could afford to get you something really special.
Well, we'd agreed we were only buying token presents, didn't we?
Yeah, space for a little bit more Type 40 Live, Rumble, X, YouTube, and Facebook for Christmas week here. It's finally here, everybody. Can you hear the bells? Here they are. Getting excited yet?
No expense spared.
We're upping the budget next year, don't laugh. Okay, so where were we? Yeah, soaring off into the sky there. Christmas is past. Fabulous times when Doctor Who was popular. It seems like such a long time ago, David.
Yes, 2009. I remember it all very, very well. My son was not even a year old, and my daughter was 3 years old, and now he's nearly 17 and she's nearly 20. And we loved. She loved Doctor Who as much as I did back then, and yeah, it was all how are we going to cope without David Tennant. Sort of feeling around the place. So
the nation felt that way. The nation very much felt that way, didn't they?
A nation in mourning. But
I think the worst thing we could possibly imagine is him coming back, Gary. That's
yeah.
Yeah, I think in a lot of people's eyes, he's kind of worn out his welcome.
Lots of Merry
although
Christmases
a picture like this will remain timeless.
Of course it will. We've got what else? Thank God it's over, and swan off into the sunset, says Stephen O'Neill. And Rose asks, what extras will you get on the Blu-ray? I've already told you. Yeah, so go back and watch the recap there. We haven't gotten a precise breakdown, but that's the general gist of it. You get your feature, you get bios, all that kind of thing. Lots of people very sad to hear of the passing of Chris Rea. At any time, that would have been bad news, but it's even more so at Christmas. Bless him. I love that song. Says the Zero Room. Which one? Driving Home for Christmas or A Spaceman Came a Pumping? Which is your favourite of the two? Dean Martin
used
died.
To be one of my favourite Christmas songs, but I can't.
Dan just likes saying "A Spaceman Came a Pumping." He just likes saying that.
I don't know. I only have the chance to crack that joke at Christmas. What do you want me to do? I'm going to get my money's worth out of it. Rest in peace, Chris says. He's not even the bloke who's died. I'm still cracking the joke. Okay, yes. Stay safe, stay well, and stay warm, says Nicholas Horton. Sound advice, I feel, for a prosperous Christmas. David Tennant doing his Mickey accent in the advert. Yeah, I suppose he was, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Do you think Santa will knock on Peter Capaldi's door again this year? Asks Chris Chatfield. Not if he knows what's good for him, Chris. Yeah. Get short shift. Only get short shift. And lots more comments about bells as well. Yes, so the bells have tolled, I think, for Disney Who. This is where it ends. It's all over. All this talk, all this coverage, all those episodes and specials and event series. We are on the other side of it. We've had quite a lot of Doctor Who related content in a relatively short period of time compared to the few years that were preceding it. I suppose now could be a good time to to digest it and think back, was it really as bad as we remember it being? Gary, I suppose that's the
that's easy. That's easy. Yes, it was.
3 years.
It's a case of get the Rennies or the Gaviscon. It's indigestible.
Yeah, this is a case where selective amnesia is a good thing.
You could be right. I'm not sorry to see the last of Disney Plus, and obviously I know that The War Between the Land and the Sea is yet to air on that platform, and it's going to happen. But for now, for better or worse, Doctor Who itself is free, and if not restored, then at least it stands a chance of healing from what sounds like a toxic co-production, which, to be honest, I don't necessarily blame Disney for. But BBC Studios and Bad Wolf got into bed with Disney at completely the wrong time. It was never going to work as far as I could see. And yeah, we'll probably be delivering some sort of post-mortem on that in the future, as well as more talk about the war between the land and the sea. So it's all up on the BBC iPlayer for you to watch, or you can wait for the physical media release, of course. Hit us in the comments section as well with your views on not just episode 5, but all of it. Be keen to know what you think. Now it's had a bit of time to sit with you. And what do you think about Russell T Davies? Was it a return to something approaching form for him? And how do you feel about the prospects for Pete McTighe, who is pretty certain to be the next showrunner of Doctor Who as things currently stand? I said that perhaps this would be a good yardstick to judge him by. A great many of us do feel that it was Pete's material rather than Russell's that shone in this. But let us know what you think in the comments, or you can come and say hello to us as always on our social media, Instagram and X at Type 40 Doctor Who, or get stuck in the Type 40 Facebook group. Even on Christmas Day, there's lots to talk about over there, and you can probably share some snaps of your mince pies or whatever it is you're drinking there as part of our long-standing community over there on Facebook, the Type 40 Facebook group. Go and sign in and get with the conversation there and take part in our polls and join in the review threads too on the War Between the Land and the Sea finale and see where you fit in with the general consensus. Is there a general consensus on this yet? I'm not sure there is, but we may know when the dust settles. More Type 40 Live, of course, in our playlists. Should you miss us whilst we're away, there's our Ask Us Anything shows, our deep dives into movies and TV serials there, those big landmark editions, all of those, as well as our rolling news coverage there, our early editions, and the Big Who. Now, some of it, yeah, you go back and watch them now in context, knowing what we know all these months, sometimes years later. It can be very entertaining, but what can I say? We live and we learn. You can get us in your ears as well over on the podcatcher of your choice with the Type 40 podcast, the long-running Type 40 podcast. So proud of this, particularly this latest edition there, Tom Baker, MBE. I was joined by Oliver McNeil, who's Tom Baker's own photographer of choice, I suppose, who was there when Tom was given his MBE a few weeks ago, had exclusive access, and he gives us a behind-the-scenes account of Tom's latest big day. So again, my thanks to Oliver for a fabulous, candid conversation, and there's some brilliant pics too in the enhanced video edition that's up on YouTube. But you can get the audio edition, as always, across all major podcatchers and our home feed at type40.podbean.com. This has been Type 40 Live on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X. Thank you to Luke Walters, who right now, I suspect, is on the outside of several beverages. Wouldn't surprise me, David, because he has been known to partake. So I hope he's having a good time. I hope he's rocking out and, rocking around the Christmas tree and all that jazz. But just don't touch the homemade punch would be my my advice to old Luke.
He'll be on the snowballs by now. Which every grandma's every grandma's sort of enemy, the snowballs. They are.
David, my mum's tipple of choice was a baby sham.
Oh yes. My great aunt Val, she used to do a brandy and baby sham, which had more brandy in it than a baby sham. Put it that way. She was known for her lethal cocktails. And yes, I must say that I don't mind a little bit of a mouthful of Advocaat. However, I just sort of stay on the Rosie Lee and a bit of the old Pepsi Max as well. So that's my tipple of choice.
On the hard stuff. I hate to say this, guys. This is already terribly sad, but I've just seen some news in the live chat. Can anybody confirm this? Somebody says here we've got Bill Silver says that Danny John Jules has died.
Hang on, leave it with
what?
I sincerely hope not. Obviously,
right.
Danny John Jules, not any connection with Doctor Who. Danny John Jules is the cat from Red Dwarf predominantly, but also Dwayne in Death in Paradise and performer in several huge theatre productions and movies like Labyrinth. British Entertainment legend.
I just very quickly, I Googled Danny John Jules, and one of the things that came up, I guess, is a thing on Facebook 4 days ago. It says Danny John Jules has every right to be angry about a fake news desk story about him that was circulated on this platform. So hopefully it's just, one of the manifestations of the dark side of social media. And that he will be with us for a very, very long time to come.
And it's been reported in British papers that it's an online hoax. 3 days ago.
God. Yeah,
very good.
Be careful what you bring to the live chat. Come.
Yes.
Yeah, that was yeah. Okay, thank heaven that Danny John Jules is okay. Oh right, so back to the wrap. Yeah, Type 40 Live here. Thank you again to Charlotte Shields for being part of the show again tonight. Fabulous points raised by Charlotte already, and I do hope you have a fabulous Christmas and all our best for 2026 as well. The show is unimaginable without Charlotte Shields at Type 40 Live here for over 5 years now, where the Whoniverse meets proper common sense, for better or worse, with no party lines, no beef, and no bullshit. And if you like this, there's lots more in our playlists as well. But that's us wrapped up for another whole season. This is our longest ever continual season, believe it or not, Gary. And this does feel like a conclusion of sorts to what is kind of the second phase, I suppose, to what we started here initially, all the way back in lockdown a few years ago. I think the first phase of it was kind of about saving the show in the middle of lockdown, the show in the wake of the Timeless Children. And then the second phase, I suppose, is, okay, there's a new production team coming in. There's all this big talk. We watched it all come together. And now it's all been delivered. So the changing of the tides of Doctor Who and Doctor Who fandom here at Type 40 Live, and times do change. We've changed a lot for the better. I know. I'm really proud of what we've accomplished on this show.
You should be.
And you guys joining as well over the last year, 18 months. It's been part of the natural evolution of it. And David, thanks again for sharing part of your Christmas week here with us.
My absolute pleasure. And if anybody's interested, very, very quickly, what a tanking means, or a free falling thing means, it means going like that and not even going like that or like that as well. So it's got to go straight down like that, drop like a stone. Okay, and it's been a pleasure, Dan, and thank you so much for welcoming me. That's the Pepsi Max going to my head. Welcoming me into the family, into the bosom of the Type 40 family. So I'm very grateful. Thank you. Have a lovely Christmas to you,
I'm happy,
to Gary, and to everyone out there.
Yes, to you as well.
I'm just happy to have you aboard, and you too, Gary. I mean, there is more to come. Type 40 Live will be back with a raft of special live streams, all in good time, Gary. There's always plenty more to talk about, isn't there?
Oh, there's always something to talk about. You know, and our conversations are always really, unexpected and interesting and fun. And I hope everybody, tunes in.
Until then, a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from all of us here at Type 40 Live, where we always have the time, if you have the space. Ho, ho, ho. Have a great one. Bye-bye. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.